Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Mr.
Morning,
Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Morning, everybody.
Approval of county board minutes.
So moved.
Got a motion? I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any additions or deletions? We have none. I'm asking for a motion. and a
So
second.
moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Who do we have here this morning but the 4-H proclamation? Come on up. And I'll ask for you all to state your name and all that good stuff. What 4-H group you're from?
Got it, Becky?
All right.
Yeah, I think it's working.
I think it's working. It just took a second. Okay.
I got a green light.
There
There we go. Okay, thank you very much for having us here to celebrate National 4-H Week and have breakfast with our commissioners. I'm going to pass the mic around. We'll let everyone say their name and their club and their favorite 4-H project.
Jan Wozniak, I'm leader of the Darling Thunderbirds 4-H Club.
I'm Jeanette Watland. My family is a member of the Livestock Legends 4-H Club.
I'm Tammy Wilczek, and I'm leader of the Ripley Fireballs 4-H Club.
I'm Jenna Haig, and I'm the MC of Beats 4-H Club.
I'm Justin Haig, and I'm part of the MC Huff Beats.
I'm Everett Rudolph. I'm from the Snappy Elmdalers, and my favorite 4-H project would be my chickens.
Brenda Rudolph, Everett's mom.
Nate Rudolph, Everett's dad.
It's Vivian.
I'm JC Haig. I'm from the MC Hoofbeats, and I enjoy doing horses. I'm Alicia Holtz. I'm from the Livestock Legends, and I have a tie between beef cows, sheep, and pigs.
Beautiful.
So we did bring a proclamation that the girls are going to read for you.
Whereas 4-H is America's largest youth development organization, having supported almost 6 million youth across the country thus far. And whereas 4-H has helped over 225 youth in Morrison County to become confident, independent, resilient, and compassionate leaders. And whereas 4-H has delivered by corporate extension a community of more than 100 public universities across the nation that provides experiences where young people can learn by doing in hand-on projects in areas including health, science, agriculture, and citizenship. And whereas National 4-H Week showcases the incredible experiences that 4-H offers young people and highlights the remarkable 4-H youth in Morrison County who work each day to make a positive impact on those around them. And whereas 4-H's network of 600,000 volunteers and 3,500 professionals provide caring and supportive mentoring to all 4-Hers, helping them to grow into true leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Now, therefore, Mr. Winchard, Chairman, do hereby proclaimed October 6th through 12th, 2019 as National 4-H Week throughout the Morrison County and encourage all of our citizens to recognize 4-H for the significant impact they have made and continue to make by empowering youth with the skills they need to lead for a lifetime.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on that.
I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
thank you. Thank each and every one of you, and thank you two for doing what you did today. It takes a little bit of strength always to speak in front of anybody. It truly does. The two of you did a wonderful job, as I'm confident each and every one of you have done or will do in the future. There's not a doubt in my mind. 4-H is a big deal, and it's a big deal in Morrison County. I'm proud to support 4-H. Thank you all for being here.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Same thing here, so thank you
No.
very much.
I'm not gonna let you get off that easy. So anyway, one of my favorite, when I was in 4-H, and again, this was back in the 60s, was chickens. So Everett, what kind of chickens do you like the best?
I like Cochins,
Okay,
and I like Barred Rocks, Banties, Easter Eggers.
Which ones don't you like, Everett? Maybe that's
which one's your favorite? You have to have one favorite. Which one would it be?
Cochins.
Cochins, yeah. The Banties or the standard ones? You like them both?
Yeah, I like them both.
Because they got all the feathers on the legs and everything. So do you have a favorite color of the Cochins?
I like the Splash,
Okay.
the Blacks.
What's the Splash? Explain what the Splash
It's
is.
gray. It's a really light gray,
Okay.
and the black ones are more black, and then the blue ones, they're like a navy blue.
All right. So you do know your chickens. Way to go. And then also this young lady up here, I have to commend her for pronouncing my name correctly. So I'm not too many. They always say Winster, and you did it perfectly. So again, thanks to your learning ability that you have for pronouncing names. So again, the parents, the kids, again, this is something that I think is very important for the youth nowadays as a 4-H. So I want to thank you especially too for being the mentors to these children, because there's a lot of things that they can learn as they grow up and become an adult. So again, thank you very much. Anything else, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, one more thing. There's a young lady with us here today, a 4-H member, that I know I read about recently. It's something to do with horses. I wonder if you could explain what that's all about, what you did.
So I wrote an essay to win an Arabian, and I was in top 5, and I won. And
You want a horse?
Yeah.
No way. Cool.
I think that's pretty awesome.
Thank you.
Any more discussion, gentlemen? If not,
Thank you for the T-shirts. It's always fun to be able to have that for today and as a remembrance.
Mr.
of-
Chair, before we let them go, I think we also have to express our gratitude and say thank you for serving us breakfast and coming to have breakfast
Absolutely.
with us all here too. And we're all the same as you. And I walked in with one of these families into the building this morning, and how gracious they were. But for them to take time out of their morning to come and serve us breakfast, I think is phenomenal, and we look forward to it every year. I also commend the adult leaders too for your commitment, not only to the program but to the youth themselves. So I think it's awesome. Thank you.
anything else, gentlemen? Any more discussion? I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, are we gonna have a photo?
I think
op
we
here?
need one, for sure, if you're not gonna sing a song, right?
Guys, gonna go up back behind the commissioners.
Well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we'll just kind of sneak it together. gentlemen.
We can see the-
Yeah. They can sit on it.
Don't trip on this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's mine.
For a change, it's not mine.
There you go.
Everett, good to see you. You've been coming for a long time.
Everett, I suppose you want to sit in my chair, but sorry.
So where's the little one?
stand right here, though.
Where's that little one we can see?
And bring your sister so she can see.
So that it's two rows. Girls, if you want to go forward, we'll let some of the adults go behind you.
You guys are awesome.
One of the
You know, I
commissioners.
think so too. Vivian, right up here. Absolutely. Sure.
Or maybe Mom.
Or Mom can just
Okay.
over too, that's fine. Let's squeeze in there, everybody.
Yeah.
There you go, buddy.
All right, keep squeezing in, don't be shy. Whoops.
We get everybody.
Everybody say chicken.
Chicken.
Here, hold on a second. I gotta shut this off, because otherwise it. Perfect.
Well, since we have to say horse. Horse.
What were the names of the chickens? You can say one of those, I don't know.
Foghorn Leghorn. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You bet.
Next time, bring your
Be
horse.
safe, buddy.
walk
Bye-bye.
right down the
Thank you.
stairs.
Thank you.
Put it in the elevator.
In the elevator.
Maybe we better do a chicken.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig asked for a chicken, not a horse. Make it a little more. We have dogs, don't we?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, how about, let's see here, for Domestic Violence Awareness Month proclamation.
Kind of matches your shirt, huh?
If you please could all state your name.
Halloweeny.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
Is the microphone
You
working?
can pull a couple chairs up.
Sure you can. Absolutely. Bring a few more chairs up.
I can just sit and they can stand.
Sure, that's
Okay.
fine.
I'm Julie Capsch. I'm the Assistant Director at Hands of Hope Resource Center.
Deanna Thompson, I'm the General Crime and Abuse Child Coordinator.
Amanda Caping, Sexual Assault and Volunteer Coordinator.
Stephanie Hack, Executive Director.
Good morning.
Good morning, all.
Morning. Should I just go ahead
Do you
with
have
the
a proclamation? Read
Yep.
away.
Okay. Whereas 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence during her lifetime, and approximately 15.5 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year. Whereas when a family member is abused, it can have long-term damaging effects on the victim as well as family members, friends, and the community at large. Whereas families are indispensable to a stable society, and they should be a place of support to instill responsibility and values in the next generation. Whereas violence against women and children is a prevalent public health problem that is widespread and is devastating to society as a whole. Whereas the problem of domestic violence is not confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers. Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, and humanity due to the systemic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control or abuse. Whereas victims should have help to find the compassion, comfort, and healing they need, and access to medical and legal services, counseling, emergency and transitional housing, and other supportive services so they can escape the cycle of abuse, and domestic abusers should be punished to the full extent of the law. Whereas we encourage domestic violence victims and their families to seek assistance from appropriate victim service organizations such as Hands of Hope Resource Center. Whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide services to victims of domestic violence and work to increase public understanding of this significant problem. Whereas important partnerships have been formed among criminal and juvenile justice agencies, healthcare providers, allied professionals, and victim services to assist victims of domestic violence and their families. Whereas Morrison County has a moral obligation to work to prevent domestic violence, address its brutal and destructive effects, and make ending domestic violence a local priority. Now therefore, the Morrison County Commissioners hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urge all citizens to actively support Hands of Hope Resource Center's work towards the elimination of domestic violence.
Gentlemen, ask for a motion and a second.
So move, Mr. Chair.
I didn't, who was the motion? Oh, Commissioner Blaine, all right. And then we got a second, all right. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
the numbers are staggering. And perhaps I've said this before. This morning I have to say it. That was your first sentence. 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence during their lifetime. Staggering and has to go away. To add to that, 15.5 million children are exposed every year. Absolutely staggering. Something that just should not be. For everything the Hands of Hope does, you know, I'm not going to say the best kept secret in Morrison County any longer, because you're not. You're not a secret. And for those of you that don't know of Hands of Hope, get to know Hands of Hope. They're good people. Thank you for what you do.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, I just want to say that when we have that exposure to things that are so difficult to accept in society, we don't want to accept this in society, this kind of behavior, but what that does is it makes us appreciate the people who are on the front line doing the work to address this all the more. And so to use and to your people, you have our sincere gratitude for everything that you do in this fight. This is a sin against our own and against our society. It's a wrong that needs to be righted. You are our first defense that way, and we appreciate your efforts, so thank you.
Myself, again, I appreciate, again, the work you guys do, but most of all, how does one contact you? You know, you come to the board, but to me, that's an important thing that if there's a tragedy or something, how does one get a hold of Hands of Hope?
We have a 24/7 crisis line that they can contact.
And where do they find this information if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, if they need to get a hold, how am I gonna get this number? Or is it out in the sheriff's department, or can you kind of explain that for me, please?
Yep, all of our law enforcement carry cards on them that have our phone numbers on the back. And so when they respond to a scene, they can give the victim that card with that number on it. We also have a Facebook page. We have a website that people can find it. We have some posters up around town.
So the website would be Hands of Hope, MC, or just Hands of Hope, and then?
www.handsofhope.net.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think it's invaluable to have this agency right in our building, essentially, or close to it. It certainly is amazing what those partnerships can do, you know, with law enforcement, with the county attorney's office. I know that they are very appreciative, along with all of us, with the work that you do and the partnership that you have with them when responding in tough situations. So thank you for that on their behalf. I know that they would provide those sentiments if here.
So if somebody, also they can just come walking into your office?
Absolutely.
And where is that? I know Deb said it's somewhere here in the courthouse. Where in the courthouse is it?
We're located in the historic courthouse.
Okay.
Right next door.
All right.
On the main level.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have picture time?
Well, I think we should.
Want to do the
Have
same
to.
thing? We'll squeeze in, gentlemen, and they can squeeze behind us.
Works good for me.
I know you wouldn't want to leave without that. I would.
You know what?
The orange and purple go together.
This thing.
How tight do we have to get?
Should we pull
What
together?
is today?
What is
Eighth?
today?
Eighth.
Well, certainly we should pull together. Of course, we need to pull together.
Somebody can hold that? There we go.
Instead of bunny ears, you can do that on the mic stand. JJ, do you want to, just a little bit?
Scoot?
Yep.
Oh, excuse me.
All right. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I see someone else out there. South Country Health Alliance.
You skipped one.
Skipped one.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Amy, please come for the National Cybersecurity Awareness Month proclamation. You guys got to keep me on my toes. Way to go.
Morning, everybody.
And state your names again for the record, please,
When you're ready.
when you're ready. And there's also a
Not
microphone.
before. Thank you. Good morning.
Especially Amy. We need her name. No, thank you. Morning.
Thank you.
So Amy, who do you have with you here today?
I'm Amy Minendorf from the IT department, and then I have my staff. I'll let them introduce themselves and their roles here.
I'm Nick Reed, System Administrator. I'm Dan Leahy, Network Administrator. I'm Anthony Starr. I do the Managed Help Desk and Support.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sing.
And we're missing Connie
Connie.
Seelen. She's
Yes.
back at the office manning phones. So good morning, Commissioners. This year, I'm bringing forward to you a proclamation to show that Morrison County supports the National Cybersecurity Awareness Program. So October is the month that was picked to bring awareness to everybody about how to be cyber safe. This year's campaign is Stop, Think, Connect. I handed you out the pamphlets that were provided to us by the Department of Homeland Security. So I have those throughout the county. Cybersecurity is an ever-growing landscape that's not gonna go away. It's just gonna grow. So I feel it's our responsibility to protect everybody's data that we store here in the county, and also to teach and educate everyone about how to protect their information. Cybersecurity is just really stopping and taking a moment, think about what you're doing, and then connect if everything looks safe ahead. By doing this, you can mitigate a risk. You can stop a potential data breach. You could stop a potential virus. As you guys may have heard of recent ransomware attacks on government agencies, that's currently a $20 billion market out there for cyber criminals. And there are roughly ransomware attacks every 14 seconds of every day. So the county and the U.S. and the nation invest lots of money and funds into cybersecurity technologies to help protect data. And we also need to protect or invest in our humans and stop the human factor. By ransomware attacks that were, the ransomware attacks that are most prevalent have been attacked through humans by clicking things that are not safe. So this Cybersecurity Awareness Month is really just educating users and citizens on how to stay safe. So, you need me to read the whole proclamation?
That's up to Mr. Chair. Probably not a bad idea.
Yes, please.
All right.
Or you could have one of your lovely staff do it.
Or
just for fun.
everyone could take turns reading it. However you like to do it, Amy.
Does anybody else want to read?
You're doing fine.
I figured that was the response, but I can't help but just pick on him a little bit.
All right, so whereas Morrison County recognizes that it has a vital role in identifying, protecting its citizens from, and responding to cybersecurity threats that may have significant impact to our individual and collective safety and privacy. And whereas critical infrastructure sectors are increasingly reliant on information systems and technology to support financial services, energy, telecommunications, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems. And whereas cybersecurity education and awareness is crucial for everyone, including large corporations, small businesses, financial institutions, schools, government agencies, home users, and anyone who connects to the internet. And whereas monitoring your own accounts, being conscientious of what you share online, keeping computer software up to date, creating unique passwords and changing them regularly, installing antivirus programs and firewalls, and using mobile devices safely are ways you can protect yourself from phishing viruses, malware, and loss of sensitive data. And whereas the Stop, Think, Connect campaign serves as the national cybersecurity public awareness campaign, implemented through a coalition of private companies, nonprofit, government organizations, and academic institutions working together to increase the public's understanding of cyber threats and empowering Americans to be safer and more secure online. And whereas the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Workforce Framework has been developed as a free resource to help organizations, both large and small, public and private, improve their cybersecurity practices through a practical approach to addressing the ever-evolving cybersecurity threats and challenges. And whereas maintaining the security of cyberspace is a shared responsibility in which each of us has a critical role to play, in awareness of computer security essentials will improve the security of Morrison County's information, infrastructure, and economy. And whereas the federal government of the United States of America, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, the National Association of State Chief Information Officers, and the National Cybersecurity Alliance all recognize October as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And all citizens are encouraged to visit these websites and the Stop Think Connect campaign website to learn about cybersecurity, put that knowledge into practice in their home, school, workplace, and business. Now therefore, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim that Morrison County is officially supporting National Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? If I may, again, the internet and all the cyber stuff that's going on, you guys are just like any cog in this courthouse. You're very important to us, again, the cell phones and here, trying to figure our schedules and it's just ongoing things that, we have to be updated. And that's the world we're living in. It's not the piece of paper anymore. Everything is pretty much, technology, and again, you're a very big asset to this county, so I appreciate all you guys do.
Mr. Chair, if I may, every 14 seconds, there's a data breach. In Morrison County, have we had any? I mean, we all get a phone call. I'm confident everyone in this room gets a phone call about every 15 minutes at their house that's from someone that's saying they're going to fix the problem that you have or don't have. I'm anticipating that we have had an issue in Morrison County. We're not singled out. I'm confident we have. But have we had any real tough, strong data breaches in Morrison County?
If Morrison County would have a data breach, you would know about it and it would be in the papers. We have to report those.
Okay.
We work very hard to try to prevent that, which is good, and I appreciate Amy and her team really paying attention to that because the balance is hard, and we, will struggle with what to do to protect data and to make sure we're operating in a safe environment, yet needing to do the business we do. And it's not an easy balance to have, and I really appreciate, number one, the awareness, the effort put into making sure people understand why it's important, because I know I need to be reminded myself too often, but the staff's done a very good job about recognizing that we need to, adjust the message so it doesn't get old and stagnant. We need to make sure we're tackling it in different ways that really hit different staff and what connects with them, because it is so important, because staff need to do their job. They use a lot of tools to do their job, but yet need to be doing it in a way that makes us aware of and protects the information we have. So I appreciate your efforts.
Gentlemen, any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, just when I think about the cybersecurity, the utilization of this technology, I think back to our strategic planning and how we here at Morrison County as an organization want to be able to be more accessible to our residents and be able to deliver services through the utilization of technology. It underscores the importance of the work that these 4, 5 do kind of down in that dungeon of wiring and blinking lights and all the stuff that we don't know a damn thing about, but we love the fact that you guys are down there and are responsive. Not just to us as commissioners or as staff, but to the general public here in Morrison County. And the general public of Morrison County, we recognize, doesn't see you and doesn't see you on a daily basis, but the role that you play and the importance of the role that you play in our relationship as county government to the people that we serve is paramount. So we do appreciate everything that you guys do, and we certainly don't take it for granted. So thank you, and thank you for bringing this forward today.
Thank you, Commissioner Blaine. Anyone else, gentlemen? Again, all the work you guys do, thanks a lot. So again, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, is this a photo op here too?
Well, I think we should have something with the staff, because they were
We don't get
excited
to-
about it. I mean, Dan in particular was like, let's do something.
We don't get their pictures in the
Pretty
paper
much
too
have to.
often. Yeah.
Now you
Well,
guys,
well,
now,
thank-
now we'll get you into the public.
Yes, and that's the goal.
Slide this way, guys. Yeah, that works good for me.
Mike, you just stay put.
Yeah, you just stay right
This way, that works good for
Who's
me.
making that cleaning sound?
You mean like,
Yeah.
I don't
Center
know.
yourself, guys, you know how to do it.
Yeah, probably. No, I was gonna
Thinks
say,
he's playing the drums.
this is perfect.
All right.
This is
Oh my God.
Unsung
outstanding.
rock stars,
Yeah.
right here.
Oh, do you want the?
Jeff, slide in a little bit.
You gotta
guys.
hold that up. Put that
In the
up.
middle, here.
Look at that. It's right behind Mike's head.
There we go.
Smile. Saying, I'm IT, I love to be in front of people. It's the best part of the job. Cool.
All right.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very kindly.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Now I'll start cleaning here. See, can you fix my tablet?
Thank you very kindly.
We even have some different ideas for this issue when you're done, to help with some campaign marketing stuff.
Leota, South Country
Oh, I didn't do that.
Health Alliance.
Good morning, Leota.
Good morning, Leota.
Hey, Leota, if you could state your name for the record.
Good morning. I'm Leota Lynn, CEO of South Country Health Alliance.
Good morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you, probably the last time. But wanted to provide you with some updates on South Country, particularly the financial performance. As everyone here is very well aware, 2018 was an extremely challenging year financially, a number of different factors impacting that. We worked very hard as a staff and with the board to put some plans in place to really turn that around, and fortunately, we are seeing the positive outcomes of those actions. So, within the packet that I provided you, where we currently stand at the end of August 2019, South Country is showing a net income of $3.3 million. This is favorable to budget. We are anticipating to be at about 1.5 at the end of 18. So a number of factors playing into that. Most significantly, our member months are above budget. We went into 2019 very conservatively with our membership. It has been running approximately 2% above our budget. Membership is directly tied to revenue, so with the increased membership, we're also seeing increased revenue. Our DHS Medicaid revenue is up 2%, so very in line with the increase in membership that we're seeing. Our CMS revenue is actually up 8%. And there's a couple of different factors with that, driven by the risk adjustment process.
Leota, could you explain what CMS is?
Certainly. CMS is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So it is the federal agency that we hold contracts with for our two Medicare products. That revenue, there's a risk adjustment process that's done, and that information is submitted, and based on the health status of the member, your payment is adjusted based on that member's health status. So with the work that we've been doing to ensure that we're capturing the diagnoses of our members, we had some increase in the risk adjustment rates that were being paid on that population. The other factor this year is we're receiving for the first time what's known as the frailty factor. And this is an adjustment when you have dual eligible members over age 55. They're compared to another population benchmark. And this is done on a survey standard. And really one of the things they look at is the activities of daily living. Our population this time qualified for that frailty factor. So it's an additional payment on top of our regular base payments. And that's accounting for approximately $120,000 a month in additional revenue in 2019 that we'll receive throughout the year. We don't know that we would get this again in 2020, so it will not be part of the process looking forward. But again, it is definitely something that has been helpful this year as we try to regain our financial footing. Our medical claims are above budget. They're up about 1.4%, but when you look at an increase of 2% higher membership, that's very much in line. We've continued to have a loss ratio that's favorable to budget, a 90.7, and when you look at the medical loss ratio, again, that's expenses over revenue. We had budgeted 91.3%, so that 0.5% can make a significant difference. We are running pretty much on budget with our admin expenses. In previous years, we've had some favorability. As you know, we really went after our admin expenses in our 2019 budget and took as much out as we possibly could, and staying very much in line with that. So currently, we're 7.8 for our admin expenses compared to an 8.1. We anticipate finishing the year under the 8% margin. Our net income, again, bottom line is that 3.3 million for end of August. As part of the work that we've been doing, we have also been kind of forecasting our anticipated year end of 2019, both for ourselves and also providing this information to the Minnesota Department of Health on a quarterly basis. So on slide 4 is the most recent forecast that was done at the end of second quarter. As you look at the bullet points on the side, you can see that we are anticipating ending 2019 with a net income of approximately 6.1 million. When you look back at, we closed 2018 with a $12.3 million loss, a very significant improvement in this last year. We do anticipate that that could be reduced a little bit, and working with the state have found out that now they will be holding some of the enrollment in the last quarter, particularly the special needs basic care population. They will not be putting any new enrollment into South Country. They stopped that enrollment on September 9th. So we'll see some slight reduction in membership in the last quarter of the year, so that will impact where we potentially look at ending the year for revenue. We are projecting a 90.5% loss ratio for year end of 2019. Again, 6 points lower than what we, or 5.5 points lower than what we ended 2018. Significant improvement. Continuing to work on that admin ratio, projecting a 7.6% admin for the end of 2019. And the risk-based capital. This is a term that I believe you gentlemen have become very familiar with. The 200% is the minimum statutory requirement. We closed 2018 at 162%, had a plan in place knowing that we would be at the approximately 207% by June 1st when we received the remaining capital contributions from the counties. But we are anticipating and projecting closing 2019 with a risk-based capital of 294%. So very significant improvement over 2018. As we look into 2020, and I know that may not be as significant to you folks, but we have received the base rates from the Minnesota Department of Human Services for the 2020 contracts, slightly better than what we had used in our projections for 2020. So we will expect the final risk adjustment rates in late November, early December. There's always a delay in those process, but looks favorable for 2020. Our CMS Medicare bids were submitted in June as the standard practice. Those have been approved, the contract signed for 2020. We're looking at about a 4 to 5% increase in our CMS rates for 2020 across the two product lines. The contract rate changes that we put in place with our provider contracts in late 2018 are really a 2-year, it was a minimum of a 2-year rate reduction. So those still will be in place in 2020. We actually do have one of our larger providers that those changes were put in as a tiered system, that they took some reduction in 19 and then an additional reduction will go into place for 2020. So we'll see a little bit more improvement there with that particular contract. We've begun working on our 2020 budgets now that we have the preliminary rates, the base rates from DHS, working through our membership projections, revenue, claims expense, and working with our actuaries on all of that information at this point in time. We anticipate bringing at least a preliminary budget to our finance committee at the end of October. Our budget will not be finalized probably until into December after we receive the final risk adjustment information. With that, I will pause and just take a moment to see if there's any questions with that.
Leona, question, that cash call, cash contributions from the counties, is that part of the profit or loss? And if it is, can you explain where it was distributed? And if it isn't, where did that money go?
So the 3.3 is actually, if you look at on the first slide, or slide 2, operating income, the 2.8 million is actually the operating income, so that's off of the revenue. The capital contributions that were made by the county have been put into a separate account, and those dollars are still sitting there in that account. So we are not using those dollars for operating expenses. Those dollars were put in to simply meet our reserve requirements. So they're not being used for the operating.
Is that part of the threshold of the 200%?
Yes.
So
Correct.
that would be in there?
Correct.
So you need that dollar amount in there, otherwise you wouldn't be hitting your 200%, correct? So is that, am I?
At this point, I'd have to probably go back and have Scott do the calculation with ending the year to 294%. If those dollars were removed, we might still be at that minimum, but it's a fairly complicated calculation that would need to be done. As you're aware, with Morrison, Todd, and Wadena County leaving South Country Health Alliance at the end of the year, as part of the joint powers agreement, the equity position that those counties have in South Country Health Alliance will be returned to the county. So that calculation will be done when we do our year-end financials. So in February and March, as we're closing out the books for 2019, the independent auditors that we use actually do the calculation of what the equity position of each of the member counties is in the organization.
So those claims that are still out there, maybe in January, February, they would have to, for 2019, that would be part of that calculation, because the fact that obviously, when you close your books out, that's why we'd be waiting until March or whatever it is, right?
Correct. We always do what's known as an IBNR, an incurred but not reported. So the actuaries that we work with at year end do a calculation of what dollars would still be needed to cover any potential outstanding claims from the previous year, because providers have up to 6 months following the date of service to submit a claim. So they do that. That's factored in. Once that's factored in, then the auditors will take a look at, okay, these are the dollars that are needed to continue the operation to pay all outstanding claims. Here's what's left in the organization. And at that point, that's where they do that equity calculation. In the joint powers agreement, the board has the authority to determine if those payments back to the counties would be done as a lump sum or over up to a 5-year period of time. That decision hasn't been made yet, probably will not be made till closer to year end as to how that will be done. So if it's done over a 5-year period of time, which I anticipate is the most likely scenario, the first payment on that is paid September following the year of departure. And the counties are also paid interest on those dollars then that are over that
That'd be
5-year period.
2020, the payment would come, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
all right. And then, and again, your great information on this RBC, so will that be based on, if there's a dollar amount that's in that account, if you take that money out and that would happen to reduce your RBC to, let's say, 180, then I'm assuming they would not take that money out because that's to keep them at that threshold of 200.
You know, I think that's a scenario that would probably be true if that scenario were to happen. What will happen is the total amount of the payments to the counties will be counted as a liability on South Country's books at the end of 2019. But RBC is more than just the dollars, it's also membership. So because we'll be having a significant reduction in membership, the amount that we need in that reserve is reduced. So when you look at all of those factors. So at this point in time, I don't believe that there is any risk that we would be below the 200% risk-based capital with the amount that has to be paid to the exiting counties.
All right, gentlemen, any other questions, though?
Mr. Chair, I
Comments, I should say?
I need to make the point that it's important to the board to look at that 2020 looking ahead, and I know so this last sheet is important to us. Although the decision's been made that we would exit our alliance with South Country, we also have a vested interest moving forward in the success of South Country Health Alliance in the future, as it has a fiscal impact on our county. We want nothing but success for South Country Health Alliance going forward, whether or not we are members and have a voice at the table, or we are ancillary members going forward. So this is important. It's an important document. It's an important brief, and it's important that you come here to share that with this board. And I think this board recognizes without me telling them, the significant change in the fiscal position on paper from this time currently to where we were a year ago, and the challenges and the struggles that were faced by that organization, and the decisions and the actions that were taken to address it. And so we're glad that you're here, Leota, and know going forward that we too have a vested interest in the success of South Country going forward. So thank you.
Gentlemen, go ahead, Leota.
I would just like to say, we will miss Morrison County. We thank you for the years that you've been a part of South Country Health Alliance. I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of great people through this process. We've had some very strong relationships with providers in the area. We understand the reasons the decisions were made. I know it was a very difficult decision for all of you. We wish you the best. We know that from South Country's perspective over these next few months, our main focus will be on assisting Morrison County staff, working with the Department of Human Services and our team to really transition those members to the plan options or the services that they will have effective 1/1/20. It's our commitment to really work with you to try to make that transition as easy as possible for those individuals and to try to mitigate the disruption. We look forward to continuing to hopefully work with you at a point in the future through AMC and some of those other types of events. We appreciate the support of county-based purchasing that has gone on. We appreciate the support in this last year that even though you had made the decision to depart, that you continued to be actively involved and to support the organization through this upcoming year. So my thanks to all of you.
And Leota, we appreciate you coming in front of the board and give us some of this update on information. That's very helpful to me, and I'm sure it was the rest of the board. So again, if there's any comments, concerns, Deb, do you have any comments?
No, I don't, just
Yep.
thank you, Leota. It's good to see you again.
I look forward to our paths crossing again and again and again. Thank
They
you.
will.
And we wish you all successes for South Country. So, all right, anything else? Otherwise, that'll do her.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
If I
Leota.
don't hear or see you, you have a happy Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas, believe that or not, huh?
Wow, thank you.
Sad that we're talking about that already. Okay. How about social services and public health? Those will be coming forward, and then after those two, we'll take a break after.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
All right.
Morning.
Good morning, Brad.
We didn't have a planning meeting last week. We had a sex traffic, yeah, you can come up. I have three different reports today, so, but last night we had the first internet safety presentation at Holy Trinity School, and I understand from Cindy Nienaber, there's about 35 people in attendance. We were competing with volleyball, twins game.
I'm gonna interrupt you. We have, keep in mind, these are different. So
Yep.
the one you got that you're gonna get here, they look pretty much the same, but they're different, and we don't have
Yeah.
enough, so. you know.
I'll get some more.
All right.
Yeah, so we had 35 people at Holy Trinity last night, and we have two more presentations coming up. They have been organized by the Child Protection Team. We know that internet safety is important as well as preventing sex trafficking, which is kind of that first step. So, so sorry I was not able to get them to you last week, but thought we'd bring them today, so. All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to Karen to talk a little bit about fraud. Program integrity is important in the financial assistance program, and so Karen's gonna share some fraud information.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Karen.
Fraud prevention report. If you see the first page, what we did is we compared Benton, Mille Lacs, Morrison, and Sherburne County. Monies not issued due to fraud prevention, and then total overpayments issued. Monies not issued due to fraud prevention are basically if we send FPI out.
What's FPI?
FPI is Federal Preventive Investigation.
Sorry,
Okay,
Karen. Fraud
that's all right.
prevention investigation, Karen.
Okay.
I'm glad
Remember,
you
we
ta-
like to talk fast.
Yes, right,
Acronyms,
yep.
short sentences, so.
FPI, okay, he goes out, we send a fraud referral to him, he goes out, he finds that there is unreported income, okay? He sends it back, we determine that the client's no longer eligible. We get 2 months of savings on that case. That is what you're looking at with the monies not issued due to fraud prevention. That is a savings on cases. When we close a case, we get 2 full months of what they would have been eligible for. Had they, they don't report the income, we find that they're not eligible, we close it, what they were receiving is a savings.
So what you're saying is that if I, one of them, and you close my account out and I'm getting 500 a month, I would, and there's 2 months advance, you would get my 500 to the
Right.
county, okay?
2 months.
2 months of it.
$1,000, yep. And then total overpayments are what clients did not report, and we determine there are overpayments in their cases. So if they were reporting no income, FPI goes out and finds that they are working, they remain eligible, but it's at a reduction. So we have to go back from the time they started working and determine the overpayments.
How often does that happen?
Oh, it happens quite often.
Seems like it's a lot of
It's
work.
it's a lot of work. Overpayments are a lot of work. But you have to keep in mind how much cash assistance we issue in the county. If you're looking at GA, MSA, GRH, MFIP, DWP, we issue an average of $98,000 in the county. That's per month. And SNAP benefits are an average of $175,000. So when you're looking at these total overpayments, that's kind of peanuts to what
And the 175 is per month too, right?
Yes, yep. So is it cost effective? Definitely. But is it a large amount? Well, when you look at what we issue per month, it's not a lot. But it definitely.
It adds up.
It adds up, yep.
And it's still important, like Brad said,
It
the
is.
integrity of the system
Yes.
is very important, and so recognizing that we're paying
Right.
attention to that
Yep.
systems are in place to safeguard that is an important function.
And then, fraud referrals by type. It shows the counties, Benton, Mille Lacs, Morrison, and Sherburne, TANF cash. That's our Minnesota Family Investment Program and our diversionary work program. That's the cash assistance for families. SNAP is our food support program. Federal medical is exactly what it is. Child care. Other state programs, GA, general assistance, Minnesota supplemental assistance. SNAP trafficking, we have none. MNsure, and then the totals, average monthly referrals. In Morrison County, the average is 14 referrals a month. Of course, some referrals come back, he finds nothing, but on some referrals, it's substantial. We had a case that was in Benton County, Sherburne County, and they moved to Morrison. The worker questioned, they were buying a house in Morrison. The worker questioned how they were going to make the house payments because they reported no income. Well, it turns out he was working in all 3 counties. So that was a substantial overpayment.
So, Mr. Chair, Karen, if I may, 14 referrals a month on an average, which I totally understand. And you just answered the question, but I want to make sure that we're very clear on it. 14 referrals, we're doing our job, we're catching whatever it is that we're catching. That does not mean that we have 14 fraud cases every month.
You're right, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
And then last but not least, fraud cases that are referred to criminal court. Benton, Mille Lacs, Morrison, Sherburne. Now, these have to be a substantial overpayment to take them criminally. And it's also discussed with the county attorney.
The reason that she has these 4 counties statistics is because we share a fraud investigator across all 4 counties. So that's why we do not have a fee for his services. It is paid for by the state. He is an employee of Benton County. He was here last year, and Andrew's his name.
Yeah.
And so, but what I would say is that it's important to pay attention, and we get referrals from many different places. As Tabitha knows, once in a while there'll be one to the generic county email address, and she'll forward it on. It may be a call from a family member, or it may be one of the social workers working with the family. But anybody that makes a fraud referral, they'll look in our system, make a determination whether or not they should send it on to Andrew for him to go out and investigate. So most of them are done by him. Once in a while, the sheriff's department will get involved if it's a criminal, if it's going to be significantly criminal. Otherwise, they'll usually take his information and charge.
And sometimes we have to send it out of county too if there's a conflict.
Yep.
Any more questions or comments?
Very
for
good, Karen, thank you very
Karen,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
Brad, you gonna switch your hat?
I'm going to switch my hat to public health.
All right.
So I'm going to put on 2 hats at one time.
I always knew he had a big head, but I didn't think it was.
Good morning, Cindy. Good morning, Sarah.
So Cindy and Sarah are here to talk about special needs basic care. It is a program through South Country Health Alliance where we provide care coordination. So I'm going to turn over to Sarah and Cindy.
So yeah, Cindy and I share staff in special needs basic care, which was really a voluntary managed care program for people with disabilities ages 18 to 64. So this whole population is certified disabled. And so they might have a combination of medical assistance and Medicare, or only medical assistance. So there are 3 programs under special needs basic care. One is ability care, and that is where South Country manages that Medicare component as well. So it's all in the medical assistance, and the Medicare is all in one program managed by South Country. Single care is where they receive medical assistance benefits, but they are not eligible for Medicare. And then shared care means that South Country manages their medical assistance, but their Medicare component is managed through a different plan. So the next slide shows how many members we have and where they're at in each program area. So in Morrison County, we have about, right now, 142 members that are in special needs basic care that we manage internally. And so there's 119 of them in that single care. There is 8 of them in that ability care, and there's about 15 in the shared care. So we have 2 different positions that we manage with our special needs basic care. The first is our care connector, in which we have about a 0.6 FTE. And that person is really the person that bridges the gap between South Country Health Alliance and our agency. So they work, in regards to either medical services, public health, human services, community resources. They just work collaboratively with South Country staff to provide support at the local level here. So they are really our go-to person at the county. We also provide care coordination, in which a nurse or a social worker will assist the member and their caregivers in managing their healthcare services, setting up dental appointments, setting up transportation, setting up a medical appointment, looking for resources. And so we have about a 1.3 FTE. In about February of this year, we moved some of that over to public health. So about 0.5 of that is in public health and 0.8 of that is in social services. So a full FTE is around 125 cases. So we have a capacity of about 162. We're a little bit below that, as you can tell. We knew that, but with what was happening and some decisions that were made this year, we just left it as is. We had talked about taking some cases from South Country because there are 172 Morrison County shared care members that are managed internally by South Country. And so we had discussions around taking some of those cases from the internal office, but then with everything going on this year, decided to hold back until we knew more. And so they do have 2 main care managers and a third who works on just strictly refusals, unable to reach us at South Country itself.
So when a member is on the SNBC product, we have a care coordinator assigned to them. So what happens is within 10 days of enrollment, they get a letter saying, "Hi, my name is Susie, I'm your care coordinator, I will be reaching out to you." The first thing they try to do is see if that member will take a face-to-face assessment, because it really makes a difference if you can actually visit with that member in their home, or if they're not open to that, we even have some that will come into the office. But the care coordination role is about establishing a relationship with the client, so that when that client has a question about their coverage, a question about where to go for services, how to connect, how to get transportation, whatever their need is, they have a face that they can connect to and say, "Hey, I need help with this." And that's really the cornerstone of care coordination, is making that relationship happen. This is a difficult population to reach. Many of those members don't return the calls, don't respond. And so the care coordinator has to be pretty insistent in trying to establish that relationship. If they agree, then that member will have a face-to-face assessment that just does a basic healthy assessment. What are your needs and how are you meeting them? After that, they have quarterly phone contacts. So, "Hey, I met with you in January, but it's now March or April. Let's talk again. How is it going? Are you having any changes?" That kind of thing. Face-to-face every 6 months, and then every year annually they try to connect with them. For the members that don't accept a health risk assessment, it might be that we simply can't reach them, or that they say, "I'm fine, I don't want you to connect with me." We still try to reach out to them. We still call them, send them a letter, check in with them as much as we can. We have to try 3 times on 3 separate dates per the health plan criteria to reach them. So we can't just call once and let it go. They really do have the requirement to keep trying. And then they still get a phone call. And if they refused last year, we still call them again and say, "Hey, are you interested in us coming this year?" Or if anytime during the year, they call us and say, now I'm interested, we will definitely work that in. You can go ahead one more slide. So when we look at our percentages of members, we had 39% of those people that refused a visit, 37% accepted a health risk assessment, and we grew that number by quite a bit this year. We were more about like 24% last year, so we've really increased that number. And then 24%, so 1/4, still remain simply unable to reach. That means they don't respond to phone calls, texts, or letters.
Yeah, so as Cindy said, this is a difficult population to engage. And so some of them may have case managers, some of them may have refused case management services, but could really benefit from that. So even if they refuse a health risk assessment, it doesn't mean they're refusing care coordination. They can still call that care coordinator for help and support. It's just they didn't agree to a face-to-face visit. So the next slide is our revenue. So our actual right now for 2019, we had this, like, again, 2 budgets, so we had to combine the 2 budgets. So for our social service budget, we had it through August, but public health runs just a little bit differently, so we could only gather revenue through June, and public health, remember, was only from February to June. So combined, we had about 47,000. So we're about on track for our projection for the year.
So one of the other things that happens when a member is in the South Country or the SNBC population is that we follow transitions of care. So transition is any time a member changes settings. So it might be someone who's at home, who's admitted to the hospital, who's at an adult foster care, who goes to a nursing home. Whatever the transition is, if they're in a different setting, we follow up with those folks. We get a notification from the health plan. If they're made aware, we get a notification from the hospital. Sometimes the member or the facility they're at will call us. So that's when the care coordinator really steps it up and reaches out to the member. There's a great risk for errors at that time because members don't always know what their medications are, don't always know when their next appointment is. That's the role of the care coordinator, to reach out at that time. Care plans are shared, so sometimes we'll get a call from the hospital, this member's been admitted to the hospital. Care coordinator knows, oh, they normally go to adult foster care, they normally do this, do that, they have Meals on Wheels, just putting all the pieces together, because that social worker and hospital staff don't know that member the way we do, especially if it's a member that's engaged with us and accepted a health risk assessment. So we share the care plans. One of the real big challenges in this system is that we still don't have a lot of interoperability with all of our health care electronic records. And that's something that's still just a slow-moving train, but we'll get there. Some facilities have really great interoperability with counties, and within 2 hours of a person being admitted to the hospital, the care coordinator gets an email saying, hey, your member was just admitted to the hospital. That's our dream world, that we would know sooner rather than later, because the sooner we can get involved, the better we can help that member coordinate their care. 11% of our cases last year had, or in the last 8 months, had transitions of care. That's really a high percentage, and so all of those folks have had interaction with their care coordinator. One of the things that happens is we call the 4 pillars of care, or pillars of transition. So when they leave that facility, whether it's a hospital or some other institution, we're following up. Do they have a medical appointment when they leave? Has there been transportation set up for that? Are there other specialists that they still need to make appointments with? Medication changes are huge. If that member leaves the hospital and goes home and starts taking their meds the way they were before and doesn't realize that they need to change a dose of something, that can actually be life-threatening. So following up with that member, do they have a discharge plan? Is there somebody that goes into the home to set up the medications to ensure that the changes are followed through? Do they have enough money to fill the prescription, or did that prescription get to the pharmacy? Do they have transportation to pick it up from the pharmacy, or will the pharmacy deliver it? All those pieces will prevent that person from being back in the hospital again if they don't follow through on everything that they needed. Does that member know what led to the hospitalization? Were there some warning signs? Did they not realize that that shortness of breath was a sign of heart failure worsening? And would they recognize it next time? Reviewing that with the member. And then a personal health record. So basically they're saying if they went from hospital to nursing home, did all the right paperwork follow them? We'll make a call to that nursing home staff. Did you know that this person has XYZ? They have a specialist appointment coming up, all of those pieces. So transition of care is probably one of the most important things next to establishing the relationship with the client that a care coordinator does for that SNBC population. Questions about that SNBC work?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Blaine.
Your microphone.
Sorry. So this relationship with the care coordinator and this program that you've explained, the relationship between Morrison County and South Country Health Alliance in the past in providing this service now with the transition for Morrison County to another healthcare provider. Can you share with the board the future of this program and the impact of the decision to transition healthcare providers and what it will mean to this program?
Well, that's a great segue, because that was my next comment,
Beautiful.
so.
Beautifully
I didn't even put a quarter in him or nothing, he just knew what to ask.
Just deliver.
Because of our withdrawal from South Country Health Alliance, we will have 2 new plans for families and children. However, we found out a couple weeks ago that we would not have this particular health service available for 2020 because of our withdrawal from South Country Health Alliance. So actually, I have this on our county board planning meeting for further discussion next week about what this means. As Sarah said earlier, we transitioned some cases from South Country, or from social services to public health, because we knew we weren't gonna have the Care Connector fund, so we were trying to build the revenue on the public health side in preparation for that loss of revenue. However, when we were consulting with the state about what's gonna happen in 2020, as it turns out, they would not have a health plan for this particular population. So overall, it's about 300 members for us, about 800 members overall for the 3 counties of Morrison, Todd, and Wadena. So I have that on for planning for further discussion next week.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, we'll look forward to that discussion about this, because obviously we've got 300 people that we're delivering a service to, and decisions that we have made to do other, that have ramifications to this, are going to force us to have this discussion.
Correct.
Going forward, so.
I was actually hoping to have more information. Todd, Wadena, and Morrison met with DHS last Wednesday for about an hour and a half, all the procurement division, and we're now working on a phone call between our 3 counties and the commissioner to talk about this particular population, but they're pulling more data. So we're hoping to have that information as well next week. So we're still missing some pieces as far as what the challenges may be for 2020 for this particular population.
I think it's a good thing that you're forthright, that you're here explaining to us this issue, and we will have to address that and look at this going forward, because we want to meet the needs of the residents of Morrison County. So, thank you, ladies, for your presentation.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair,
Zelinski.
if I may, we went back to our second slide. Voluntary managed care program for people with disabilities ages 18 to 64. Question that I don't know the answer to. Physical, mental, and I don't need to know that.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Certified disabled.
What happens before I'm 18 and what happens after I'm 64? Because I know something happened before, more than likely, and something happened after 64, more than likely. Can you tell me what happened before I was 18 and what happened after I was 64? Is that, if that's not fair, just tell me.
Well, before they would be on the Family and Children's Program because they would be under their family's health insurance, or
Okay.
because they're certified disabled, we would have done what's called TEFRA.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna remember exactly what that stands for, but it is an acronym.
Okay.
Which then, so if a family can't afford or has access to their own health insurance, but it doesn't cover all the disabilities, we can certify them disabled and put that on MA while their family stays on a regular health plan.
Okay.
65 and older,
65 and older, they would go on to one of the health plans, whether it be MSC Plus, which is.
Okay.
MSHO or MSC Plus, so they would be on one of the over 65 programs, and they don't have to be certified disabled to be on those programs. Those are very much related to their age only.
Thus, there's obviously a plan before 18, and there's obviously a plan
And we
after
actually have
64.
really specific process, so when a 64-year-old is about to turn 65, we need to look at which plan is better, because in the past, they could stay on the waivered program
Yep.
that they had before, or they can transition to the over 65 program. So we look internally at what will best meet their needs and what does the member want to do.
Thank you.
And prior to SNBC, this population, due to the fact that they're certified disabled, were excluded from managed care, and so they would be on straight medical assistance.
Okay.
So when SNBC came along, it was the opportunity to get them on a managed care program and have some of those same benefits that the other age groups and populations receive.
And DHS realized a cost savings by putting people on the SNBC product, because clearly when you help someone manage their healthcare needs, the goal is to keep them out of the hospital, keep them safely in their home, make sure that their needs are being met.
Yep.
And so this is a very cost-effective way to do that, by having care coordination to reach the needs of those individuals. The state had a definite plan to save dollars by doing it.
Thank you. Good answer. Thank you very much.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Thank you.
All right, next hat, Brad?
and then just for public health, we shared this at the Public Health Advisory meeting last week, and as Commissioner Lemire could probably attest, I cannot explain the medical condition of hepatitis A as well as Dr. McNamara did at our meeting. But we are in a pocket, you might have heard about a hepatitis A outbreak, and I just want Cindy to talk a little bit about the coordination and work she's done in the community to make sure that it doesn't spread any worse than necessary.
The hepatitis A outbreak is very specifically being observed in our jail populations and in treatment centers. It's typically IV drug users and folks with some other high-risk behaviors that are incarcerated. Currently, there is an active case in the Crow Wing County Jail. So what has happened is that we've had some inmates that have been going back and forth between Morrison and Crow Wing. Those inmates have now been considered exposed once they were at Crow Wing, so we're trying to catch up to those folks and get them vaccinated. 2 weeks after their exposure, they can still have some pretty good protection by being vaccinated. So far, one declined because he had a needle phobia, and he has since been transferred, I believe, to Hennepin or Ramsey. And the other one, yesterday, we did have one accept the vaccination. We are moving forward, working closely with the men staff that does our jail health to make sure that we are offering the immunization to all of the jail inmates, because truly they're all at risk based on this outbreak and how it continues to grow. I think we're at 35 cases statewide, but we're right in the center. There's cases in Crow Wing, cases in Stearns, and with our inmate population moving around, that continues to be of a concern. We're also working with the jail staff to look at preventive vaccination for our jail staff. So we're looking at this big picture. I've had a great working relationship with MEND, have a meeting set up with the MEND staff and the jail staff this afternoon to look at how this rolls out. Because we no longer have a vaccine refrigerator that's temperature monitored, we can't keep the vaccine here. Vaccine is provided by MDH free of charge to all those inmates, not staff, but to inmates. And so we have a memorandum of understanding with Family Medical Center to store that vaccine. They were great when I called and said, hey, we need to put a couple boxes of vaccine in your fridge. Clearly marked it. We're tracking inventory to make sure that it's ours and it doesn't accidentally get used at the clinic. Within 10 minutes yesterday, when I got a call, yep, we've got somebody that's willing to take the vaccine, I was able to run over, pick up a dose, get it back here, and the jail nurse took it from there. So a great collaborative effort between MDH, our jail staff, our clinic, other counties, lots of moving parts right now. So we're hoping that we can get more inmates to take the vaccine. It is voluntary. They do have the right to decline. We're trying to provide them the necessary education, understand how high their risk is by being incarcerated, and we're hoping that we will get a lot of them to take the vaccine to reduce the likelihood that we will have an outbreak here.
And I really need to commend Cindy on the collaboration and the coordination between MDH, the clinic, the jail. She's done a great job in making sure that this is available for those and keeping the jail informed, working with Scott and men. So I just really want to say thanks to Cindy for the work she did around this, because it is a
Cross our
concern.
fingers and hope that we don't have any color filled in for Morrison County. That is the goal.
Yeah.
And this is just jail population outbreak, or is this?
Well, it's outbreak
in general?
overall, but
Okay.
the bulk of them are incarcerated, or there's actually incarcerated and then treatment centers, just because of the IV drug use that are pretty high risk.
Sure.
One of our neighbors, I believe it was Kennebec, they got over 120 people to take vaccine already. So we're trying to move in that direction to get as many covered as we can.
It's almost amazing that it's taken this long. I hate to say that, but it's the use is there.
Yeah.
It's-
Minnesota didn't enter into outbreak status until about 3 months ago, where we had enough cases to be considered in a hepatitis A outbreak.
Good
So I just wanted to
information.
bring that
So hepatitis isn't one of those standard vaccinations for young?
It is not. Hepatitis B is a vaccine that a lot of healthcare workers get, and now it's one of the vaccines that a lot of people get as kids. But it's a 3-step, and that's the challenge. The other challenge is that really this should be a 2-step for our jail population. We're probably only going to catch one unless we have somebody that hangs out for quite a while. But most of our jail population is in and out pretty quick. So even if we catch them with one, that's better than none.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have today.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you very
Gentlemen,
kindly.
let's take a break.
Break is good.
Break is good. What's that? No, I know she did, but you know what? I just kind of want it on the record. And then they'll have. Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, what?
Oh, you're right.
No.
We are not at risk for now.
What did I do? Just my job, just my job.
Why don't you just take it down to the Ford dealership?
Hey, Commissioner, Wayne, Commissioner.
So before you talk.
Okay, I'll talk to Mom about it. You could just take it, can't you take it to any place else up there that does brakes?
It's about this next.
I'm gonna get some more of those. Anyway,
Huh?
Do you want your shirt? Did you get it?
No, I didn't. I had
Where'd it go?
short amount of time with her, and I wanted to make sure that we.
Probably
even
needs brake
a month
shoes then.
ago. Actually, the last
I
2
know.
months.
I didn't think
And I
that we
didn't,
were
well, I
getting
didn't
them,
figure you
so
were gonna
that.
wear it because you were on state out.
Somehow.
Well, and I called Gloria last week when I got that email from the state auditor, and I'm like,
And I,
is it okay if
I
we're
kind
looking
of
for 4-H,
gave up
because I have her coming, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I only have this
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll
set
talk to
timeframe
Mom
with
and
her.
we'll see if we can find something that can,
Perfect.
because it's under warranty yet,
I'm
I
gonna go
think.
take mine off though.
Oh, really?
I think everybody else.
Okay. You can drive it though?
Nice for the auditor.
That's what he said. He goes, really? I wanna
Is
look
that
nice for the
funeral
auditor.
Thursday, son? Okay, well,
You wanted to look nice for me, right?
Yeah.
For the auditor, right? Because that's what I was taking.
So just
Okay.
you hit calculator and then punch the numbers in. That's what
hey, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
access to our equity.
Nothing.
No, are you okay?
I got my knee, I did my knee replacement.
Sorry, man.
It's been about 2.5 weeks, so
We
it
have
hurts.
vested interest there. We want you to be
Sitting here
successful.
and it's best to sit here.
Yeah.
Pretty soon I'll get up and
Wishing
we'll be
for,
done.
you know, we're gonna leave and then hope you crash. I mean,
First meeting I've been to since really,
get nothing.
Yeah, because I remember last week you
so-
weren't here, right?
well, there wasn't one
Or
last
right,
week.
that's right.
And the week before
Planning
I
session
wasn't.
though, right?
No,
Or
I missed the first one. Yeah, the first, I had it done on a Wednesday, and I missed the following Tuesday, then it was canceled, and now this one, so. But it's okay, it's just sore.
Do you have to do like physical therapy?
No, twice a week.
Okay.
Yeah. And then every day at home. No, it's been good, really. Do it at home, everything's going good, it's just time.
You know, kind of.
Yeah, it's just time.
Kind of talking about.
How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing good. Good. How did she end up?
Hey, good morning.
Then she.
Good, how are you? Good.
Lots of items on fire. Always.
Yeah, it's kind of self-inflicted, but I picked my last portion of that.
Did you? You gotta pick them before it freezes, or does some you gotta pick after it freezes?
Gotta say the weather has something to do with it.
Yeah.
There are a few varieties that are better after it freezes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know there are.
Yeah.
And of course, it all.
Not the ones that I have.
It's too bad. Big weather.
Yeah, well, it's coming, it comes every year.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been wet though. Really wet.
Yeah, it's wet.
Oh, yeah, no, it's wet out there. I don't know how farmers are gonna get stuff out, especially if we start to get a little bit of snow. You know, we'll probably get some snow and then it'll quit and get nice for a while.
I hope you're right.
The silage is the big thing.
Yeah, silage is probably almost getting too late. I'd say a lot of it's probably getting pretty dry already.
It's getting there. The big problem too, though, is for a lot of these guys, if they get interrupted in the middle of a pile.
Yeah, the setting of it.
They won't go through the siling process.
Yep, yep. Especially when you're piling it, yeah. The bagging process probably works a little better.
Hey Tyler, thanks for coming this morning.
Yeah. The big guys, like about
Yeah, I would say.
Oh, yeah, thanks for letting me know. For blocks of,
Yeah.
You know, and all the cheese that's there.
Yeah. No, once that process starts, you damn near gotta keep moving.
yeah.
You shouldn't do that, that's not sustainable. So that action, I'm more, I'm more critical of it.
Not in this
If you feel
situation.
like I did that's wrong,
Pinching part is
Thanks for.
Yeah. No, I know. One thing about millers, though, they've got a little bit of land everywhere, you know, that one time you can be at one place, next time you can be somewhere else.
And she's like, oh, sure. And I'm like, no, really. I said, well, I
And I was down Glencoe on Saturday to a friend of mine, and we got about 250 bushel, but they're tiled. You know, so now when the rain comes like this, it'll dry out pretty fast just because it's tiled out. And I mean, they talk about putting in more, you know, the more they, it's these fields that you start irrigating and tiling, you know, you, just so that the ground is right. Yeah.
Well, I gotta cement my shed out yet, because it freezes.
Yeah.
Cooler for my apples and
You better get cementing pretty quick.
that's kind of held up to see that it's gonna be cementing. He's backed up because of all the rain and doing some rain beds.
Yeah, yeah, I tell you, my son-in-law does cement work too, and
I mean,
everything's
it was
backed
like,
up.
we
and
did, I mean, basically, we didn't, all we basically did.
I can't do it when it's raining.
Find out that we really don't have to take any action because there is no action to take, it's just, everything's been going, it's still going on, whatever.
All right, I'll leave you to Amy now. Thanks, Greg.
I plan on being there tonight, but if I'm not there, then my legs got.
That coffee was all burnt.
I'll give them my regret, or give them your regrets if you're not there. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, but I'll plan on being there.
I can explain.
No, I can't, I can't explain that, you know. I'm
Sitting here,
in the sense.
you know, it's where it belongs, you know, it's just time.
I misinterpreted, I basically misinterpreted the message.
No, I'm not, I'm taking Tylenol right now.
Hey, this Tabitha.
It'll be 3 weeks tomorrow, but
Even when I
it hurts sitting here.
Melissa had,
No, I had the pain meds and I cut them back, and
So
Maybe at night when I go to bed, I'll take one just so I can try to sleep a little better, you know. If I don't need them, and I've never taken much pain medication, but I took what they told me to take, you know.
I will be up there as soon as the board is.
Now we can cut back.
Okay, thank you.
Well, when they say 6 weeks, I mean, yeah, you know, I mean, it's not one of those things that you can just kind of put off. It's, yeah, Johnson did it.
To do it. So they were like, no, tell us.
He did a good job, and it feels fine. It's just that it's, you know, it gets sore sitting here at home. I got it up
That was that one
and
day that all
elevated
of
and
us
stuff, you know.
We were in a meeting.
But it's sitting here, it's,
Answering phones.
this is the first meeting I've come to since I've done it. We didn't have one last month, or last week, so.
To me, I said, she asked the girl yesterday, I said,
We'll make it through, go home, set it up, ice it,
So
and
then I go,
do what we're supposed to do.
all week long.
Most of the time it works pretty good, sometimes it don't. You hear of the ones that don't, but there's a lot of them that do. Yeah, that's not good. But then there's some that don't do what they're supposed to do either, you know? So, but, yeah, they get that, and you can get that infection anytime, you know? You get infection, you're screwed. That's a bad, no, that's a bad process.
so anyway, that is, so.
But yeah, that infection thing, boy, that's what you got, that's what really takes you down, is that infection.
So now I'm
Yeah,
going to go
no, I
back.
know. Mine's been going good, though, it's not been red or nothing, it's been,
You said
so,
that.
but I'm not gonna push it too far.
I'm gonna,
You know, they all know what they're doing. I mean, everybody's different, your body's different. Some people need different.
yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, but I said,
That's good. No, I'm real happy with Johnson, I like him a lot. Yeah, well, anything can happen, but I mean, you still gotta like your doctor.
and then see if I can come and see. And I see, I run into
No,
members from Pike Creek.
Really hard during the day, I feel sore at the end of the day.
You know, but yeah. Well, you can't, those are the things
I couldn't even walk for, you know, I go in a store or something, 15 minutes, I gotta sit down. You know, that was before I had my surgery, so it's time to replace them. I mean, when they're wore out, you know. Yeah, that's what it is. I'll be 64 this year. November. No.
Another thing I was going to ask, is there
Yeah, as long as I got this job, it doesn't really help me any, you know.
So then she was right, so she was right, because I think that's.
So I'll probably wait till I'm about 67.
So it has been on yesterday.
With other things you asked about, the weekly, like once a week with their weekly.
Yeah.
Like that
We're
logo.
going to,
All the other stuff.
It wasn't like, an alteration schedule. So, and that's where.
Otherwise.
It's just canceled, so I thought, well,
as long as I got this job, I might as well just wait, because there's no sense giving it back.
so all that.
Like the front of the building or the,
It's a little higher, but I gotta go in pretty soon and sign up and check on it.
you know what I mean?
Figure it
Like
all out, so.
their loader truck. We'll let you know how it goes. Yes, we'll ask them. I'm sure that we'll be good. Him? That's who I should ask? Okay.
Okay. When do you not have to pay back, or you can make as much as you want? Which is? Oh, okay.
But this is just, have any pictures of the building, just looking for some stuff.
Good.
It's not a, John's not gonna think it's a big deal.
All right, let's get this meeting going. It's gonna be land services. And just a little note, this is not a public hearing, so again, we had that public hearing here a few weeks ago, so this is just considerations that Amy will be bringing us to the county board. So Amy, what do you have for us?
Morning, Amy.
Good morning.
Morning, Amy.
I have a few items for you. The first one is to consider rezoning a 30 by 40 portion of a parcel from agriculture to commercial for the purpose of a billboard. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission on September 23rd.
Gentlemen, I'll ask for
Second.
any more discussion. If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you. The next item is to consider the interim use permit for a home extended business. This is specifically a craft production and retail shop, including one condition. This was also recommended for approval by the Planning Commission on September 23rd. And the condition is the interim use permit shall terminate when Gregory and Laura Adamek no longer own the property.
I'll move on this, Mr. Chair.
Second.
And that's with the condition?
Yes,
All right,
please. Yes.
okay. I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? If not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. And then the final item I have for you today is to consider the request from Ronald Wolcher to rezone a portion of a parcel from agriculture to rural residential. This request was initially brought before the Board of Commissioners on August 6th, and the vote was tabled to today, and that was to give, get my hair under control. Sorry. That was to give the applicant time to meet with the township and to visit about some concerns that the township had in regard to access, and then also to show proof of legal access to a public road from this property. As of this morning, I have not heard from the applicant. So I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you today. I was emailed a letter though from Little Falls Township this morning, and so I will read that to you. On October 7th, 2019, the Little Falls Township Board, at its regular monthly meeting, met with Mr. Ron Wolcher regarding his request and plans to rezone agricultural land to be zoned as rural residential. Mr. Wolcher provided a partially executed purchase agreement for land to be purchased from Kleiber Properties LLC to provide for southerly access from his property to Harness Road. This purchase agreement apparently provides for a 33-foot access into the property. While in general this would provide reasonable access into the property from the south, it was noted that for any road to be established for acceptance by Little Falls Township, the roadway would be required to be a minimum of 66 feet wide right-of-way and built to Morrison County standards as part of an established plat. It also should be noted that given the limited time consideration in providing the partially executed purchase agreement, the Little Falls Township Board did not, nor will not, have time to determine its full execution, and therefore only minimally meets the requirements towards fully allaying any other concerns about access into the property, nor did this action fully meet the intent for conditions of support by the town board. The Little Falls Township Board called the question in providing for a motion to approve support for the requested property rezone. The motion was approved in a 2-to-1 vote in favor, 2 ayes and 1 nay of the request. And that is signed Charles Perrins, Little Falls Township Board. I have not seen the purchase agreement. That has not been provided to me. I did reach out to Mr. Wolcher last week, asking for any documents that he had to provide it in your board packet, but I was not provided those. So in your packet, you'll see that I have 2 resolutions, one to approve and one to deny. because I was just trying to build in those contingencies, because I didn't have
For the
any
record,
information for
gentlemen,
you.
would you want Amy to read the resolutions, or have you taken a look?
Okay, hold on 1 second. I was only putting up one of them.
I think there is only one.
Give me a minute. It was in the
There
original
was
board packet.
two.
Because I thought it was a duplicate. Apologize.
Yeah, I think
So
there's just the one.
If you could, Amy, I'll ask you to read them both then, please.
Do you want at length?
Nope, just abbreviated
All
portion.
right. I will start on the back page. Whereas, so the first resolution I have for you in your packet is whereas after county board discussion, the decision was tabled to the October 8, 2019 meeting to allow the applicant time to provide proof of legal access to a public road from the property requested to be rezoned, and for the applicant to meet with the Little Falls Town Board to discuss the rezone request and future for the property and provide written comment from the Little Falls Township Board in regard to their position on the request. And whereas the applicant provided documentation of legal access to a public road from the parcel requested to be rezoned and provided written comment from the Little Falls Township Board in support of the request to the satisfaction of the county board. And now therefore, based on the information, exhibits, and testimony reviewed at the public hearing, as well as information provided by staff, be it hereby resolved that the agriculture portion of the parcel described above be granted the zoning of rural residential. And then the other one I have in there. The only difference in what I just read is this section, whereas the applicant did not provide documentation of legal access to a public road from the parcel requested to be rezoned and did not provide written comment from the Little Falls Township Board in support of the request to the satisfaction of the county board. Now therefore, based on the information, exhibits, and testimony reviewed at the public hearing, as well as information provided by staff, be it hereby resolved that the agriculture portion of the parcel described above be denied the zoning of rural residential.
Okay, gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion and a second. This does not mean you're for or against this, so we can have more discussion.
For which one?
For the first one.
Well, whatever somebody would like.
Yeah,
to
I guess you can make a motion on the
consider.
first or second one, correct. Thank you, Deb. So this, this is not a public hearing, I'm sorry. So anyway, if you would like to make a
I'll
motion.
make a motion.
And this
to-
does not mean you're for it or
I
against it.
understand.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to the first one to
Approve?
approve.
Okay.
Yep.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any more discussion?
The discussion I have there, Amy, the township approved 2-1 with what the request was, right, that we had asked before. The 33-foot, he showed proof of 33-foot easement.
I have not seen any documents.
Okay, but-
Apparently what was provided to the township provides, it's not a fully executed purchase agreement. However, it's for 33 feet. And the township is noting that it would need to be 66 feet wide, if that were to be a road that would serve a plat.
Right, but if that was gonna happen, wouldn't that take another process besides granting him, from agriculture to residential or whatever? If he was gonna plot that out and start doing things in there, that takes a whole other process, right? To put the road in 66 feet and,
He'd need to be applying for a Minnesota 505 plat, which does require a public hearing. There are also ways to split that property incrementally where he would not need to plat.
okay.
Depends on how he's timing this.
Well, I think I have my question answered.
All right. And again, when it brought to the vote, I'm a little not understanding. If they're stating that it's a 66-foot road needed, and the applicant gave some information that's only a 33-foot, they still approved it, this, or I don't quite understand.
Sure. What they say in their letter is, while in general, this would provide reasonable access into the property from the south, it was noted that for any road to be established for acceptance by Little Falls Township, The roadway would be required to be a minimum of a 66-foot wide right-of-way and built to Morrison County standards as part of an established plat. And then they go on to say, it should also be noted that given the limited time consideration in providing the partially executed purchase agreement, the Little Falls Township Board did not, nor will not have time to determine its full execution, and therefore only minimally meets the requirements towards fully allaying any other concerns about access into the property, nor did this action fully meet the intent for conditions of support by the town board.
But yet they voted 2-1 to support it?
So the last statement in the letter is the Little Falls Township Board called the question in providing for a motion to approve support for the requested property rezone, and that was approved on a 2-1.
Okay, so now my question is, if the applicant decides to put a house there, okay, the county would require a 66-foot road, is that correct?
If he puts in a plat,
Yep.
then generally if you're putting in a road for a plat, that is dedicated to the public, that gets turned over to the township, and then that needs to be built to the township specs and Morrison County specs, and that is a 66-foot wide right-of-way. If he just creates one parcel and is going to access, he would still need to provide proof of legal access to a public road, which I have not seen. To my understanding, this is not a fully executed purchase agreement. So we would withhold permitting until there was proof of legal access to a public road.
So if the board, again, I just want to clarify, if the board approves this, the applicant would still have to come to the planning and zoning and prove that they have a
Correct.
plan or whatever it may be, right?
Yes, there would be a plat drawing that would have to show all of that, and he'd need to own all of that property.
Including get the access from the assigned agreement from?
Correct.
You'd have
In a
to-
plat, an easement would not be sufficient.
So if the applicant would like to build his own house out there, this would be okay.
Correct.
But if he would put one extra house out there,
If he's
then
gonna plat it,
Yeah.
create 4 or more tax parcels, then he needs to be owning that and that can't be through easement.
Okay, so could we condition that somehow by making, we can't? 'cause it's
Unfortunately, you
a
can't
zone.
condition
Yeah,
a
that's right.
rezone.
Yeah.
And I'll just remind you that it
Yeah.
does take a supermajority to approve a rezone.
Gentlemen, any more questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just for accuracy and process here, are we somehow putting the cart before the horse? I mean, I understand now, and thank you, Amy, for explaining what had took place at Little Falls Township, and I'm gonna assume that none of the board members were at that meeting.
Nope.
So we're gaining our understanding about what happened at that meeting by a letter from the Little Falls Township
Correct.
Board. And you're reciting that to us. My concern more is about this board taking action to grant something when we don't necessarily have the documentation that tells us, or that kind of gives me that warm and fuzzy feeling inside that we're doing this correctly. And I don't mean this in a negative way towards Mr. Walter, the landowner, or the person seeking this decision. But it almost makes me want to say, do we need to ask for a continuance on this, even if I don't know if we could or not, but to allow him time to produce the documentation that makes this thing quote, quote, warm and fuzzy. Amy, can you help me there to get my arms around this?
Mr. Chair, obviously you continued this vote because you had some concerns and you were giving the applicant more time to come up with and tasking him with coming up with those 2 items. Unfortunately, it doesn't, at least feel like those have been totally answered. When we delayed the vote, we did send him a letter outlining when this was coming before the board, what he needed to be providing, and then also a notification that we were extending the decision on this request out 60 days. By law, the county can extend that out 60 days. If you were going to extend this out farther, the applicant would need to agree to waive their right to a decision within that time frame. Otherwise, you must decide today.
And if I may, if the applicant's here, so we could ask him right now to waive his decision, or would we have to have another planning commission? How would the process go?
I would need a signed statement from him that he's waiving his right to a decision within 60 days.
And when did we table this? What was the date of the?
August 6th.
August 6th.
August 6th is when it first came on for
Okay.
consideration.
So there was, the township had a meeting in September, and they had one obviously in October.
I would assume so,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Okay. And again, I understand what the township is kind of doing. They're giving him a little bit of yes, but they will not give him the full unless he comes back to the township, not to the board, to the township with a plat to show that it's gonna be 66 feet. Again, it has nothing to do with us. It has to do with the township because that's their area. Am I right on that?
I believe, at least my interpretation of the letter is that what the applicant provided last night did not allay all of their concerns that they had presented at the public hearing. I guess that's what I read in that letter. Now, whether or not the county board feels that that would be shaken out in the plating process, that I guess would be for you to decide.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Blaine.
part of what you read in this letter from Little Falls Township, and if we went back to that, you had stated like a partially executed, or, that's
Yes.
this part where there, and I'm not sure if this is coming from as as Little Falls Township's interpretation on this, or I'm assuming it has to be because the letter comes from them, but,
Mr.
once
Chair.
again, help me get my
Yes.
arms around, what does that mean? What, is there, we don't wanna make decisions on something with, that still allows for risk of non-compliance or whatever. It puts your office or your staff and the county in a difficult position. We have a process, and we have the ability to follow that. So I need help understanding exactly what do they mean? What does Little Falls Township mean? Because they're taking a vote one way, and but then they're putting conditions in on this too. It's kind of like, well, we did this, but we don't really feel something, or we don't really see something. And now they're kind of passing that to us and say, here's the grain going in the combine. You decide what's the grain and what's the chaff coming out. And so I want to be thorough with this.
Mr. Chair, I think what came through, I guess, in the letter is that this was given to them last night to take a look at this and to provide something in writing by this morning for your consideration. And so without having been able to really review anything or have any multiple discussions or anything, I think that they're furnishing what they felt they could at that time. The applicant has just put this purchase agreement in front of me, so I am seeing this for the first time right now. I can't speak intelligently to this. I have not had time to review it or see it. What I see is two signatures on here dated the 7th of October. Of course, it hasn't been recorded. So I don't know if that's what the township is talking about as far as partially executed, or if there was only one signature last night. I'm sorry.
Amy, I don't expect you to
Yeah,
look
I
through that
can't.
like that. That's not fair to you or to the board.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Wilson.
I'm still trying to figure out here, on a rezone from agriculture to this, the 33-foot easement, didn't we talk about we need an easement to get into that property? They
Needed-
talked about on one side. This, to me, it seems like that would be enough at this point in time. If you're looking at platting it out, and they want a 66-foot road right away and this and that, that would come with the next step, would it not? Or am I looking too far into this, or?
Mr. Chair, I think anytime you're contemplating a rezone, you're looking at, one of the questions you have to answer is there adequate infrastructure to serve the intended purpose of that zoning district? When you look at the intended purpose of a rural residential zoning district, it's for it's for residential development. So then you have to say, is there access? Can people get to and from that? Is there, just like you would say, is there access to any other utility? So I think that's really what the township is focusing on also, is if you're looking at the intended purpose for that zoning district and you don't have right now legal access to a public road, has the applicant shown that this is a rezone that makes sense? I guess that would be the
Okay,
question.
so when you say legal access, what he presented to you right now, which probably is immaterial because it wasn't here on time, may show reasonable access at 33 feet.
What I would consider showing proof of access would be that this purchase agreement is recorded and he has deeded access to the public road, or there is an easement recorded that allows ingress and egress across that. I have not seen either one.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lemire.
at our August 6th meeting, we had a good discussion on this issue, and we determined that, A, go work with the township, get their support, and B, provide us with written access, documentation of legal access to a public road, and we didn't get either one of them, in my opinion. So I'm gonna be voting against this motion.
And I appreciate that. You're half right. I think we did get a little bit of information from the township, but again, they're kind of leaving it to the board because the fact that the applicant normally came here to address as being platting it out. We don't have that information. So that is, and I agree with Commissioner Lemire on that one. Also, there's just ample time here, and again, I'm disappointed that this was not brought, the township didn't even contact me, because they probably didn't even know that he was showing up until Monday night or whatever, so that's when I looked at the board packet, I'm going, where did this come from? So, based on the information that the town board is kind of approving maybe a driveway. That's what I'm looking at it, and that's not what this rezone would be for. So in my case too, I would deny the applicant. But again, any more discussion on that one before we take a vote? And again, this is a super majority, so 4 of the 5 of us.
Mr. Chair, I have a little more discussion.
Yep.
Amy, what happens, could he sign something right now, giving us time to delay this till some of this stuff? What happens if we vote no today, then?
He would have the ability to reapply for the rezone at any time that he's ready. And we certainly, as staff, would look for him to be providing the information that you had tasked him with this time. So we would be sure to be addressing that in the public hearing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can ask a question?
Yep, go ahead.
When we look, just for clarification purposes here too, when we look at, 33 feet for what he has access to now or has an agreement on, and we want 4 rods to build a road. Where I'm going with this is the cost to building that access or that road or street or whatever you want to call that, once 66 feet has been acquired, the cost to build that road belongs to the township. Is that correct?
No. In a planning process, it's on the developer. And so during the planning process, we enter into a developer's agreement, and we do involve the county engineer with that. And so they're escrowing, the developer is escrowing money to finish the road up to spec, and also pays for the inspection of that road at various stages of inspection. And then the township ultimately signs off on that because they need to accept the road, because it becomes a new township road at that point. But that is borne by the cost of the developer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Follow up to this?
Please.
If the access, if there's a house built or homes built or whatever, and there's still only a 33-foot access, driveway, as Mr. Chair had stated, or whatever you want to call it, does that prohibit from law enforcement, emergency medical, or fire department, or essential services from entering that property because it's 33 feet and not 66 feet?
Mr. Chair, I'm unable to answer that. That's kind of out of my realm.
Okay.
As far as why road specs are the way that they are. That generally, that portion of a plat process is left for review by the county engineer, and that's part that we have him sign off on that portion for the road design.
Okay.
Gentlemen, any more discussion? If not, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go against the grain. This is not a public hearing, but the applicant is here. If he would like to come forward, I'll give him 3 minutes to explain his situation. If you'd like to. If not, then we'll go from there.
Thank you. I want to point out a couple misconceptions here. First of all, I have a public access to this land from the east. I own a quarter of a mile of frontage on Timberlost Road, minus 1 lot out of the corner. So I have access from the east to this. I own the land contiguous, so I do have the legal access. Second point is this purchase agreement, I don't know why they call it partially, because it's signed by Mr. Kleiber as the managing member of Kleiber Properties LLC. And I know he has the legal right to do that because I put the LLC together and it's in the operating agreement. And that purchase agreement calls for the purchase of 1,353 feet of property from Mr. Kleiber. So it's the whole piece to the south plus the 33, and I figured that would be enough because my eventual goal is to build a road down the line, and I'd have 33 on the south, 33 on the north. Now, because I have entered into this discussion and I've got a verbal agreement with Rotlanders to the south to sell me another 20 acres. So there is access. That purchase agreement is a legally enforceable document. I can go to court and sue. A purchase agreement does not have to be recorded because basically it's a promise on Mr. Kleiber's part to sell to me. It's a promise on my part to buy from him. He can sue me if I renege. I can sue him if he reneges. It's a legal document. It's not an easement. It's a purchase agreement. to buy that property between me and the road. And basically that, I have every intention of enforcing that legally. He's willing to sell it to me. I'm paying him $20,000 for a small piece of property, and he'd be crazy not to do it.
You have 1 minute, please, left.
Okay, but anyway, there is access, gentlemen, and that's, I don't think Little Falls Township staff, they're kind of issuing a legal opinion there. None of them are attorneys. And I don't see where it's partially, where they come up with it partially executed, because I've signed it as a buyer, he's signed it as a seller. It establishes the price, it's signed, it's dated, it's there. I've got a vote from the township in favor, and I've got the purchase agreement. You're welcome to look at it. Amy has looked at it. She's verified that there's 2 signatures on it, seller and buyer. And I do have access from the east. There's no question of access. I own 95 acres there.
All
Okay?
right,
That's all I
thank you.
have to say.
And Amy, would you like a follow-up on that?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right, any more discussion? Again, again, I'm just gonna say I'm disappointed that this information was waited till yesterday was their meeting, and again, as the township states, that they didn't have enough time to review it, so I believe what the township is trying to condition a rezone, which they can't do, which I knew that, I just wanted to bring that up. But, so they're just trying to say, well, we'll give them access to 33 feet, but we would want more for the 66 feet. So with the legal end of it, I don't believe the applicant, in my opinion, did his due diligence over the past month and a half to bring the proper information to the board.
Mr. Chair, can I just add,
Sure,
even
go
though we're not attorneys, purchase agreements have many contingencies and things that are components of them. Not knowing at all what's in that until it's executed and a closing happens, they certainly can have components, very typically have components that cause that to not be a binding in terms of contingencies for other properties or whatnot. So until executed, until it's closed.
I guess, I thank you for that. I guess another thing is Commissioner Wilson brought up, if he were to waive his right to do this, does this take like 3 months, 5 months? What is the time period on this if he's willing to do that and bring something to the board? I guess, we did everything in our power here, and I was the one that wanted to hold this board meeting so he would have a chance to get the information. I brought that up at the last board meeting. He just never came through for me. So anyway, going back to this waiver, if he was willing to waive his rights, what does that mean?
What that would mean is that the board would not be obligated to make a decision on this request within the 60-day time limit that's required within state law. And so then I guess that would be where you would probably have some conversation with the applicant to find out when he proposes the things that you have tasked him with could be done, and then you would set another date as far as when that would come before you.
So even though we look at a rezone, going by what the township said, the 66 feet, I personally assume that he wants to plat everything out. And so therefore, he would have to come with a recorded plan for that, so even where the township would agree. Am I not right?
Well, Mr. Chair, when it comes to the plat, that's a whole separate process that the township would absolutely have a place at that table. We have that built into our ordinance as far as that there be meetings and pre-meetings and all of that prior to that with the township. So the layout of the plat itself would be handled through a different process. Right now, it's just looking at, yes, whether or not this is an area that a rural residential zoning district makes sense.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Wilson.
where I have a problem with this is that you asked for this information a week ago, and it was not delivered. I would like to, even though it's delivered today, I agree with the fact that you haven't had time to look at it. You're looking at our best interest here. I would really like to see if we could delay this and continue on, and anything that you request, if you don't have it when you request it, that next time we meet on this, if the things that you ask for are not delivered to you, then I think I would have to deny this. But I just think there's so much confusion here a little bit on, he feels like he's got stuff together. You haven't had it. I hate to vote against you because you've asked for it. He didn't bring it to you. That's his fault as far as I'm concerned. And, but I also don't want to drop this in just that it's over with if I can help that. So I don't know what I'm asking here. I guess I'm asking if we can delay it for a while.
Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify, I don't feel that you'd be voting against me.
Yeah,
This
I was
is
gonna
really,
say that
you tasked, you, as the board, tasked the applicant with bringing you information to help you make a good decision. What you need to decide is whether he provided that or not, and whether or not you want to give him more time to provide that.
Well, I feel he didn't provide it because it came today, and you haven't had time to look at it and review it, that you always do a great job at doing, and the information that you bring to us is very thorough, and you look through stuff, and I feel like we're missing that piece right now.
And also, Commissioner Wilson, if it were to be denied, doesn't mean that he cannot continue with it. He can bring it back as an applicant again with the planning commission, meet with the township. He could do the process over again.
And it would cost him $600 to redo that.
Right.
But I understand that, but I'm just telling you my thought process here, so, I'll
So,
be quiet now.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if you decide that you would like to table this again, then I would look for some clear instruction for me and also for the applicant as far as what else do you need and want, so that way then I'm very clear on what I'm requesting of the applicant.
So right now, we have on there the approval to approve the applicant for the rezone. We have that as a motion and a second. Doesn't mean, again, they agreed to it. Again, my person is, thing is here is that just never provided what we asked for. He never pulled the task that we asked for, and we gave him ample time, and he's throwing it on Amy's desk and letting us know it's just that was not prepared for this, so I definitely will vote no. Anything else, gentlemen?
I just want to reiterate too that the planning commission recommended denial, and I thought we were pretty generous at our last meeting to give him an opportunity to bring forth the information that we requested. He had 2 months to do it and did not.
All right, any more discussion? If not, gentlemen, those in favor of approving it,
I believe this is a roll call.
this will be, I'll make this a roll call. Those in favor of approving the applicant's rezone, I would ask for a roll call. Commissioner Lemire?
No.
Commissioner Wilson?
No.
Commissioner Blaine?
No.
Commissioner Jelinski?
No.
And myself is no. Motion to approve is denied. Then we'll need to have a motion to deny the applicant.
To be able to adopt the
The
findings
second
that go with that.
resolution or whatever, yeah.
Correct.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
All right, I have a motion, I need a
Second.
second. Now, again, just to verify, this is a motion that we're having to deny the applicant with the reasons. So, again, I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion on this one?
Mr. Chair, after, if this vote follows the same lines, I'm hoping that there will be discussion between the applicant and Land Services to have a understanding about exactly what is needed here in documentation to support that proposal going forward there. I don't want to have decisions in government made on lack of information or lack of transparency, and I'm not saying that there is any, but you know, we'll hold the bar pretty high and on the processes that we have in place. But we also want to be respectful to the residents of Morrison County and looking at doing what they choose with the property that they own. So I'm hoping that's something that can be laid out and that can also be articulated back to this board at a respectful amount of time before decision-making is expected out of this board in the future. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any more discussion? I just want to reiterate that it was a great discussion. It was great information that Amy gave us. This is not something that we just take lightly. I think we did everything in our power here to make the applicant whole, and at this time, we have to move forward with this here motion. So again, I have a motion and a second to deny the applicant's application. So again, this will be a roll call. Those in favor, Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Myself is aye. Applicant is denied. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have unless you've got any questions for me.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Okay, auditor's report. Chelsea.
Morning, Chelsea. Thank you for bringing the state auditor to meet us.
Morning, Chelsea.
Yeah, she had a lot of energy.
Yeah, thank you for bringing her to meet us this morning. That was
Very cool, classy.
Yep, good move.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking that time. I know it was spur of the moment. It was an invite I got late last week, and I thought it was perfect timing on a Tuesday. And how important it is for us to connect with our state reps. You know, I know I brought Julie in today. Beginning of this year, I met with Secretary Steve Simon in regards to elections. And then, of course, throughout the year, I've been in contact with Ron and Paul on our needs in our offices. So it's always a good thing to meet face-to-face every once in a while. First thing on the agenda, Mr. Chair, I have a request to open a new account. But before I get to that request, I want to give you some background on why I'm requesting that. So last month, Thursday, September 26th, I had the opportunity to invest with Mid-Minnesota Federal Credit Union on a 35-month CD that they had to offer. So their offer for the rate, since we are not members there currently, and it would be new money brought forward, they had the offer of 2.55% as the annual percentage rate. I can tell you that I have not been able to work with my brokers that I have in place to get this rate. So I have been reaching out to our hometown banks to see what they have to offer, and this offer I couldn't pass up. Just to give you a visual, I asked my brokers for rates on a 1, 2, 3 year term just yesterday and today. The average for a 1-year CD is 1.80%, 2-year 1.70, and a 3-year 1.85%. So for a 35-month promo at 2.55%, I can't pass that up. So in order to get that, I need to open a member account with the credit union. And in our investment policy, I need to come forth to the board to get approval to do so. So Mid-Minnesota Credit Union was able to hold that rate for us because I let them know that I had to get
Plus, you're a
approval from
nice
you.
person.
Plus you're what?
A nice
Oh,
person.
nice.
Well, thank you for that.
I think that is typically in the decision-making skills, yeah.
I mean,
I'll make a motion to approve,
All
Mr.
right,
Chair.
I'll ask for a motion. I need, is this, no, we're, yeah.
I got a second.
Okay, got Mike and Mike for a second, or,
M&M connection.
all right. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Chelsea, I didn't realize that was in there.
Next on the agenda, this request will be contingent upon the Drainage Authority final payment approval for the retainer amount. So that will be coming before you today, a little bit later. So this would be contingent upon that. I have for you.
So can we vote on it contingent upon?
If the action at the next meeting doesn't take place, clearly then this motion wouldn't
It
proceed.
would be contingent upon.
I have a motion from Commissioner Wilson, I have a second from Commissioner Lemire. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes, go ahead.
My request is a 3-year assessment on the full dollar amount for ditch 21. And I have the interest rate of 1% returning to the general fund and the amounts of $250 or less to be assessed in the first year. And I did provide an amortization schedule for you, because I know in the past we haven't had an interest rate on ditches. But this is just a visual at 1%. If no one were to pay before, because what I'll be doing is I'll be going, if approval today, I'll be sending out notices for payment from the benefited owners, and then they will have until November 15th to pay. And then if they pay, it will not be recorded on their property and then collected for the 3 years. So they have time to come forward and pay within 30 days.
And no interest either, right?
No interest, right. I just wanted to give you a visual of the 1% and what we would actually collect if no one paid upfront over the 3-year assessment. It would be $413.90 in total interest. So when we talk about percents, I just want to give you that visual.
Good information.
The only question I have, and it's probably to Steve. Steve, was this pretty close to the estimate?
I think we came in
Un-
I think we're at 35,000 and we held our hearing, and we come in,
Under 21.
I think we came in quite a bit less.
Yes.
I don't remember the numbers, but I think it was
Yep.
quite a bit
And
less.
one last thing on this here, gentlemen, if there's like somebody, again, when they have who's gonna be assessed, if there's like a minimum amount of $100, don't they have to pay that? They can't put
We
it out?
set that here.
Right.
So, I mean,
$250.
if you wanted to modify this
That's
request, you
$250.
can certainly do
It
so.
was $250, right? That's part
Oh,
of that?
that's good, that's good.
That's what I was proposing.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Looking at the benefit, there is 37 benefit portions that are $250 or less, and 21 are over $250. Just to
Well,
give
that's a
you
good thing to have
a
in there.
visual. There's some that are assessed, or for the benefit, the minimum is $2. So
$2. Costs more than a
the
stamp.
highest,
$2.
the highest would be to Morrill Township. They have the public highways. Their amount is $4,143.
All right, gentlemen, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, just to reiterate, this is contingent upon the ditch authority supporting this motion. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Not really, isn't it done already?
No, we have to have a ditch authority meeting to approve this. But
Which is scheduled following
which is
this
scheduled.
meeting,
yeah,
but
yeah.
in order to be
But I just
able
want to
to
make
proceed.
sure that it's in the right place.
Good point, though, Commissioner Zelinski. Okay, anything else? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And before we get to the warrants, I just want to add, so next Tuesday is tax collection day. So just to give you an idea, last October, we collected $13,700,000 in October 15th settlement. So far, we've now collected $5,200,000, and so we are still in need of $8,500,000.
Could you
So
repeat that? So at this time, we had 13 million collected?
October 15th of last year, it was $13,700,000.
That we collected,
That we
all right.
collected.
Yep.
So going off of last year's totals,
Yep.
where we're at now, we collected $5,200,000. So we are still in need of $8,500,000. Just to,
$8.5 million come through the door.
in the next
30
week.
days, yeah.
Sounds like
No,
you're going to be
week.
busy.
Next week.
You're gonna be busy in the next week,
Well,
I think.
and Mr. Chair, keep in mind, some of that comes in bulk escrow payments and things of that, but it's definitely a lot of activity, that's for sure. So it's busy, busy.
Boy, it's a good thing to get this ditch thing done.
Yeah, that $2.
Yeah.
All right.
All
So,
right, and last but not least, I request approval for warrants.
All the bills?
All the bills.
All the bills.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to pay the bills.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? This will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thanks,
Have a good
Chelsea.
day.
Thanks, you guys, you too.
And we have
Actually, oh,
administrator.
good. John's here. I said, I just told John to come in here, and he's walking too slow to be in here. Now he's here, though. So there's a couple things that came through the project that we have talked about before, but need specific approval from you for change orders that exceed a certain dollar amount. So one of the invoices is number 845 from Costreba Tech Pointing and Roofing in the amount of $16,670 for exterior building work. And the other one, which can be done in, there's two more, done in, if now you're making me confused too, there's only two that I needed you to
One for
approve.
19.9.
Good morning, John.
Morning, how are you?
Good.
Good.
I didn't want that one, but, okay, so the one for one is for, 9,415, which is an amount that I can approve, but we can talk about them all. One is from Costreba Tech Pointing and Roofing. They're all for the same vendor in the
Just to
amount,
verify, Deb, why can you approve it?
because it's under $15,000.
There we go. Yep.
The other one was for 19. Because I'm a nice person. Chelsea got that right, so I don't know. And the one for 19,975 for work in the jail. So I asked John, he can explain a little bit better about what work we did and why we did it.
Go ahead, John, you got the floor.
The 19 is for the recalking of the exterior windows.
So if you remember, we hadn't included that in the original bid, but then once we started looking at it and knew we would have to do that soon, that the integrity of that seal on the outside exterior of the building needed to be addressed, and so that was done.
Point this out, they were not replaced, these windows.
No.
This
No,
is-
they were
Right, I know that.
recalking, yes,
Yep.
recalking the outside of them,
Okay.
yep.
So when finishing
they're
the
leaking.
interior, we don't have extensive leaks and things of that nature, so. it was
Mr.
worth
Chair, I
it.
have to ask a question that probably is gonna be kind of crazy to ask. But does this come out of maintenance, out of our maintenance fund, or is this part of the project that we're talking about?
We're asking it to be approved under the project, because there
Okay.
are dollars available to do so. So
Gotcha.
that, what that does is prevent us from having to levy for it in the future
Yep,
and funding
gotcha.
it through fund balance.
Very good, thank you.
Gentlemen and John, know, this is maintenance. I mean, we do all do it in our own
Absolutely.
house.
You're right.
and Look at it as a house. I mean, you want the air to come in or not, you know?
That's right.
I have a question, though. Steve Messerschmidt said before we started remodeling that the window in his office, like the air would blow right through. So was that something that the caulking took care of, or was that a window replacement that took care of that issue?
That would've been two things that took care of that, insulation around that,
Okay,
and then recalking the outside.
okay, okay.
And those known issues that we've had, when we had the walls open, we have addressed them. And so there have been smaller things. I remember on the, what would have been the west and north side, kind of over by that whole floor, essentially.
floor, yes.
We did different insulation on the exterior part of that due to the known issues that we had. And so as things have been open, as things have been available to be worked on, we have. Another component was the tuck pointing.
Tuck pointing was during construction, when they put the roof on, they didn't put the caps on them pillars. So the pillars were cracked, so they re-tuck pointed that, replaced a bunch of brick. And then they replaced a bunch of stone on the bottom from the salt deterioration.
Put caps on.
Yes, put the caps on correctly.
And that amount is for the 16,
Yes.
seven.
And went around and tuck pointed a bunch of other stuff just over years that have cracked and.
And this would come out of the contingency fund, I was kind of, I guess.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Or
And these
for-
are things,
actually,
again, I know what it is.
The extra bond proceed component of the
Not
project.
necessarily contingent.
Right,
It's
but again,
part of
it's
the-
it's part of the, But again, these are things that do come up when you do a remodel, you know,
Well,
so-
come up and actually now allow us to extend the life. I mean, so it was something we would have
Absolutely.
had to have budgeted for and we did have on our radar of
Right.
doing.
We could have took it
and
out of our building fund, right?
Correct, yes, that's where it would've went to,
So one way or
yes.
another, it has to
Right,
be paid for.
yes.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
That tuck pointing, was that on the old courthouse or this new one?
New one.
Or this
Yeah.
one here?
The new
This one.
complex.
The new one
yes.
did have tuck point done too.
The
or
old one
one.
did.
Oh, that's why I was confused.
I'll make a motion, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, this is gonna be a roll call. We'll put, you wanna make a motion on both of them,
I
Commissioners?
am making a motion.
Second on
I
both.
have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? This is a roll call vote. Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine? Commissioner
Aye.
Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire? Myself, aye. Motion carried.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Johnny.
Big John.
And then,
So I have a request, well, a couple of requests. One is to, take care of the appointments for the Rich Prairie Sewer and Water District Board. There were terms ending, or there are terms coming up, that are ending. And so the request is to reappoint Larry Korf, Mark Fighton, Dave Fisher, and Greg Gangle to another 2-year term beginning 1/1 of 2020.
and I'm assuming, Deb, that they're okay with being reappointed.
Yes.
I'll make a motion on that.
I have a motion. I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? Not, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
They
Oh, yeah, there
did,
they are.
and
Yeah,
they
that's
signed
right.
it.
If I'd have went down farther.
Another appointment request that exists is Region 5 is seeking a nomination for a rep of the county board to serve a 4-year term on the RTCC. And it identifies when that meeting occurs. I did have, Commissioner Wilson can identify himself, but did indicate that he could, was interested in this. If you remember, the RTCC is the Regional Transportation Coordinating Council. It's a relatively new concept that was born from collaboration efforts for transportation issues regionally. This was that group, remember, Brad had brought in some folks, and there had been some individuals that came and talked to us. We're kind of part of 2 different regions is what I'm recalling this one to be. I do know that a representative from Social Services, Melanie Erickson, is also going to be sitting on this, but they're looking for a commissioner representative also.
We all got this in our packet. Deb was kind enough to send this to us, so. Do we,
Just so I understand this correctly, this is like looking at transportation for like Council of Aging and all these other areas?
It's coordinating.
Trying to coordinate them to make it more efficient?
It's RTCC, and I'm going to just read this paragraph because it explains it. Consists of stakeholders interested in improving mobility for transportation disadvantaged, older adults, individuals with disabilities, individuals with low incomes, or military veterans. RTCC board membership will be diverse as comprehensive as possible and include representatives from the region's county Department of Social Services, as I indicated, Minnesota Area Agencies on Aging, Workforce Development, Transportation Providers, Human Services Agencies, Transportation and Human Services Advocates, Veterans Service Organizations, Minnesota Continuum of Care Coordinators, Centers for Independent Living in Public and Private Funders of Transportation. It is a planning effort, is how I understood it when it was presented to us. It was a state agency-driven planning effort or grant planning effort that Region 5 is a member of and participating in.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Blaine.
if I can add 2 or 3 cents to this, since I am the board member from this board that sits on Region 5, I can tell you that they do report at our monthly meeting. Their transportation group does meet, and I will say that they are engaged. The RTCC is engaged. They have good attendance to their meetings, and they meet and are accessible because they meet throughout the 5 counties at different locations to address needs. So I think it's a good thing, and if Commissioner Wilson has that desire, he has a plethora of experience in dealing with the needs of the elderly and that within our county board. I would support him wholeheartedly in representing this board on the RTCC.
So Commissioner Wilson, are you kind of nominating yourself?
Well, I'm willing to do this if it's what I think it is looking at transportation for all these different, what I see is I sit on Council of Aging, when TCC, you had all these different organizations and they all have transportation issues and they all seem to have different transportation solutions. And I'm thinking of, you should be able to work together
Yeah.
to come up with something that would benefit all of them instead of everybody having their own separate
Veteran
thing.
services too
Yeah,
has
and veterans,
transportation.
so if that's what this is, I would like to sit on that.
Yeah, you'll dig it. You'll dig it. We'll give you extra shovel.
Yeah.
You
well,
nominate, was that a nomination then?
So again, first we'll ask for a nomination.
I'll nominate Commissioner Wilson, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
I got a nomination, a second, and then I'll go for a motion first. So all in favor?
Mr. Chair, just a motion to appoint him.
Okay, all right, there we go. So I got a motion. Do we all agree to appoint Commissioner Wilson to the RTCC?
Aye.
Aye. Next case, those in favor? Okay. All right.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll have Tabitha
Congratulations. yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
I will have Tabitha add that to the committee list then as a committee that you serve on.
Will you send me something that tells me when that is, or is that next meeting?
We will send the information to Region 5, and Region 5 will be
They'll
contacting
talk.
you. And so we'll get that out and we'll let them know. And I was maybe a little behind on getting that completed, so I apologize about that. Another action item I have, and we closed our last board meeting to discuss the parameters for the LELS Corrections Unit contract from 2020 to 2022. And so I'd ask for that approval, and there are no components that have changed outside of what you were presented. And so the request for approval is that contract year and then extend any relevant provisions to non-union staff.
All right, thanks, Deb. So I'm asking for a motion to approve the tentative agreement with LELS Congressional Unit for January 20th, 20 to 12/31/22.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Not those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, Mr. Chair, and we did meet with two other groups yesterday and do have tentative agreements that are going to their groups for consideration also. So things are progressing quite nicely and quickly and quite cordially. So it's been successful so far. I have one more group to meet with that has yet to be scheduled. And so I'm looking to complete that soon and have that wrapped up. And it always is something that's quite time consuming and can be challenging, but the results are going well. So thank you.
Anything else for that?
No.
All right, because then again, we'll have a ditch meeting here after this.
Yes.
So how about committee reports? Should we start out with them? Today again is the,
Blaine.
let's start with Commissioner Jelinski.
Certainly.
I'm sorry, what dates are we having?
What are the
here?
dates?
October 13th through October 26th.
13th to the 26th.
Starting on the 15th, 8:30 in the morning, we have a planning session. At noon, I have a Towards Zero Death meeting, that's at Public Health. On Wednesday, the 16th, I have penciled in on my calendar, local water plan tentative. I have not heard anything, nor I'm guessing is anybody else, so I'm anticipating that there is no local water plan on that date. I had this in, I'm guessing, since the last one. On the 17th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I've got an Armor Owners and Operators meeting in Douglas County. And at 7:30 that same evening, I've got an Egg Society meeting. On the 21st, at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a Fall District 5, I believe, meeting in Izanti County.
Correct?
I will not be able to attend that meeting. At 5:30 that evening, there's an extension meeting. At 6 o'clock that same evening, there's an internet safety meeting at the ballroom. I probably won't attend that, but there is one. On the 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning, there's a county board meeting, and at that county board meeting will be the start of our Connect with the Commissioner, with new people, I believe.
Yes.
On the 24th, Why does this not seem right? Yep, maybe it's right. On the 24th at 12:30, I've got a State Emergency Communications Board meeting in St. Paul. And 25th, on the 26th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, as a matter of information, Sprout starts their fall and winter deal at the old Crestliner facility. And, Mr. Chair, that should do it for me.
All right. Commissioner Blaine.
The only thing I can add, double checking here.
Mr. Chair, in the meantime, on the 16th of October, I am scheduled for Hands of Hope at 5 o'clock. That meeting has been canceled. Sorry for the interruption.
And if you could let me know, Commissioner Jelinski, you indicated you were not planning to attend that MHB meeting on Friday, and I know some of you are, but if we could just get an idea for that November Public Works Planning session as you're going through this, let me know before I forget to say something.
What was this?
That
October
conference
1st?
thing, yes, November 1st.
Yeah, November 1st.
Yep, that Friday, just so we can get an idea whether or not we want to reschedule that Friday morning meeting.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yep, and you would not be able to attend MHB, so you're good with either way, okay?
Mr. Chair, my addition to the schedule would be on October 24th, Region 5 meeting at 6 PM in Staples.
All right.
And then, do you intend to and go to that MHB meeting in Walker that morning on Friday, November 1st? Blaine?
What time does it start? Is it?
Mississippi Headwaters Board.
Yeah.
I was not planning on
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Who sits on that? Commissioner Wilson, right? Yeah.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yep, but all commissioners are invited. There will be legislators that are supposedly attending and such. So it's one of those, there's a 1 or 2 times a year that the full board is invited for MHB activity. And so this is one of them. Just wanted to ask.
Yeah, and that's fine, and part of my reason for not driving up to Walker is the fact that Tim Terrell and their people do a pretty good job of communicating with us via email and the net and that, and so.
No problem. Just want to know if I need to reschedule something else. That's all.
That's fine, thank you.
I'm pretty well covered. The only thing is I've got interviews on the 16th with 2 people for the Planning Commission. That don't need to go on there, does it?
It doesn't have to, no,
Okay,
because it's
because
just
there's
you.
nobody else is coming, okay. Otherwise, I got everything else covered, and I will be going on November 1st
Yes.
to the Mississippi, because I'm board chair, so
Do you have the airport commission on the 17th?
I don't have it on here, but I'll put it down. A lot of times they cancel them, so, but put it down.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay.
Is that it, Commissioner Wilson?
yep.
All right. Commissioner Lemire.
14th, Yellow Ribbon at 6. On the 16th, I have township meeting. Is that when all the townships come together? Meeting room 1?
The fall meeting, I don't know when that is.
Really?
I have it on,
You know what? That's probably right, Tom.
October
So-
16th?
yeah.
Did you get an inside scoop?
It's a
or-
fall township board meeting?
I don't
Or
have,
do you have, is it a meeting that you
No,
are
it
doing
says
with?
meeting room 1, so I don't know why it's on
October,
there.
what is, October 16th? I don't have it written down.
I don't
So-
have it in.
I don't have it written down either.
I didn't get a letter or anything. I didn't see anything.
Doesn't matter, I guess.
Well,
Well, it does.
It does if it's here.
Yeah. Well, it
You
does.
check that out,
They have a
Tabitha?
new, they have a new secretary now for the Association of Minnesota Townships, because Barb Welty retired.
right.
Babe Brisk retired. Are you?
No, I mean,
That's
from
for
the
the big one.
state.
Oh.
And I know, I know Barbara, I've known her for years and that, and she told me too, that communication sometimes from.
You know what? And that sounds about right, Commissioner Lemire.
Yeah,
So I would say-
I just wonder
Verify
about
that
that.
for
We
me.
haven't
I don't
gotten
know.
anything, but
It is scheduled?
It's there, and she handed me a.
Oh, Darlene Kroll. Okay, perfect.
It is?
So, yeah.
So could you?
What do you have for
What
times?
day is that again?
16th at 7,
And that's here?
meeting room 1, yep.
Mr. Chair, I won't be there, so I'm sure all of you will be jumping up to give a county report. So,
Yep.
Don't fight over that.
All right.
Randy won. And the 26th is the 4-H banquet.
The 4-H food stand, yep, food stand, 7 o'clock, yep.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and then myself, yep, we got that one. I have a Great River work session on the 15th at 6 o'clock, Great River Regional Library. Otherwise, I think. The 15th, Tuesday, at 6 o'clock. Yeah, we got extension. Yeah, otherwise you got me covered. Anything else?
We don't have a soil and water on the 24th?
No, that's gonna be the next, usually it's they moved it to, it would be,
Like from here on out, it's gonna be?
I think so, so it'll be on the 30th, or excuse me, the 31st.
He's talking about.
Yeah,
And then you don't have TCC on the 24th?
yes, I do, god darn it, good catch. 7 PM.
And then,
What
is there
else?
community
didn't have
development on the 15th?
Commissioner Wilson?
We don't need community health.
You have-
Right,
you have
community development?
You have community development?
You know what? I've got it on here, but I don't think so because they met last week.
Oh.
They met
Put it down,
in
what's the
a
worst thing to
different
happen?
place.
All right, anything else? Good catches, Tabitha.
We're good.
All right, motion to adjourn. I got a motion, I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? If not, those in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
All right, and then we'll take just a small break and convene the Drainage Authority, please.
Maybe we don't wanna take a small break.